Good evening. I'd like to call the regular school committee meeting to order. This is a budget review meeting. We are beginning at 5:34. If we could start the meeting, if everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. Before we begin, I did want to mention about the early retirement. I did speak to it yesterday at the start of the meeting, last night's meeting, but I did receive some more phone calls from employees across the city, and I just wanted to again be very clear that we did do a review to see if there were opportunities for an early retirement program for all of the city departments. What we'd like to move forward with is to offer an early retirement for Unit A and Unit B positions only. They will not be offered for other city positions to other departments. It will just be Unit A and Unit B. We're not allowed by the state to offer years that would affect people's age. That's only allowed through the state. That's not something cities and towns can do. All we can offer is a potential financial incentive in order to move forward. I was hoping that I would be able to announce the breakdown today, but I was not able to do so, or I'm not able to do so because I haven't had the opportunity yet to speak with the union officials. I want them to see the proposal and get their input before we release anything. But I am going to be moving forward to offer the early retirement for Unit A and Unit B. But I don't want to move forward until the union officials and I can have a discussion and again to get their input. But certainly any questions, please reach out to my office and we can fill you in on where things stand with that. But again, I want to be clear because I did receive calls from other city departments that this is not being offered for any other city department, just Unit A and Unit B. Okay. I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Murtagh. I know there were a number of requests for information. Turn it over to you for that. Ms. Murtagh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are going to begin where we left off last night, and this is the reductions to date. So we're going to pass those around.
Motion to receive.
Second. Thank you.
Thank you. We've been presented with a document, reductions to date, 5/14 of 2019. Motion to receive by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Arnottis. All in favor of receipt? That's a unanimous vote.
And the next thing I'm going to pass out is the List A, List B, but everything that was discussed last night is on the reduction lists are off List A and List B, just so we could see what we had going here.
Okay, and this includes the votes that were made last night, including the 141,000 that you presented on that separate sheet?
Correct.
Okay. Why don't we take a moment just to review if there's any questions?
And List B.
Motion to receive.
We've also been presented with a revised List A and a revised List B. Dated today, May 14th, 2019. A motion to receive by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. All in favor of receipt? That's a unanimous vote. Why don't we take a moment to review? Any questions or thoughts at this point? Ms. Dunn?
I'm just looking to see the $141,000 savings. Is it in here separately on reductions to date?
It's right on the back page, Mrs. Dunn, on the second page of reductions, that whole, and it's actually 136. It wasn't 141. It's
Oh, okay,
136.
it's,
It was 136,675.
oh, okay.
We held back the $4,500 stipend for the art.
Okay. On that, can we please correct, one of the reductions was just a custodian. We specifically did not put a name of a school on the custodian that was going to be cut when we spoke about this last night. Unless I'm thinking of a different group that were we going to discuss it tonight?
I think it's the
Yes,
retiree.
that's the retirement.
Okay,
That is not, the second one is,
okay, thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions at this time? Okay. Ms. Murtagh, I'll turn it to you.
thank you. So what I'm going to explain is, you asked me a few questions last night. We got the information on this sheet that's being passed around, is the McCarthy School Preschool, the Little Tanners, and Passos South, Passos West tuitions.
Okay, we've been presented with an updated document pertaining to preschool at the McCarthy and the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School Little Tanners and Passos. A motion received by Mr. Olympio, seconded by Mr. Amico.
So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. LaFleur to explain Passos. We explained McCarthy, we explained Little Tanners, and now Passos.
Okay, the information we pulled from Ms. Pantampis, am I pronouncing it correctly?
And
Based on the financial ability of the family, the annual rate at the South School runs from $7,020 to $9,100. This is a full-year program. At the West School, the rate is $4,200 to $5,800. This is only a 40-week program. Both have extended days available for additional funds, and these slots are not EEC contracted, as was asked last night. So her feeling was not to raise rates, but she would defer to the committee.
Thank you for that update. Mr. Amico?
Thank you. Through the chair to Ms. Murtagh or
Yes.
Mr. LaFleur, those rates, how do they average out against a private school or other competition in the area?
they're actually a little bit lower, so we're in a good place.
How much lower, if you don't mind?
I want to say a couple thousand, a couple thousand.
For the year? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Any additional questions or thoughts on this document? Mr. Hockman?
In regard to the Passos tuition ranges that you're saying are based upon family size and income, am I reading this correct, that the rates are lower per week at the West School than they are at the South School?
Because of the hours, because of the time, and
Oh.
4 days, and extended day. It's 7:15 to 4:30 and 8:30.
I see.
Yes.
Okay. And
And the Passos South is year-round, and Passos West is not.
And can you explain the rationale for not treating this program as we're doing the McCarthy preschool and the Little Tanners?
That's a good question. Passos has been in service much longer than the other two, but that's a question that I can ask Mrs. Pantapis. We can if you choose to do so.
Well, we don't choose to do any of this, but we're forced to kind of make some decisions. And yesterday when we talked about the Little Tanners, I certainly didn't want to raise rates there. I mean, those are kids of staff members, directly impacting staff members, and I didn't want to do that. But my thought behind that was to treat everybody equally, treat everybody the same. And I don't know how to rationalize distinguishing the Passos tuition payers from the other tuition payers. I'll yield before.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mr. Arnottis?
Thank you. I just have a question. Do we have enrollment numbers at both of those?
I don't at Passos, but they're both full and we have waiting lists, but I do not have the direct.
Any idea on an average what that would be? I know I'm not,
Because it's 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days,
Okay.
some do after school, some don't do after school, so I'll get those numbers. It varies.
okay. I'm just trying to think, if we were to look at changing that rate, the impact that it could have, yeah.
Mr. Miko?
Thank you. Through the chair to Ms. LaFleur, this might be a difficult one for you to look up, but in regards to payment, do we have a percentage of how many people pay by flexible spending accounts versus check or cash? We don't keep track of that. I'm just thinking in terms of flexible spending accounts where you get the tax break.
I think most folks with a flex spending have a debit card or Visa card. We wouldn't be able to know if that was a standard Visa card or credit card or FSA.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We went up $250 per year on McCarthy and as well as the Little Tanners. If we went up $250 on the 5 days of Passos at the South, that would add $4.71 per week to someone's weekly charge. I don't know how that comes out on the sliding scale. And if we did that at the West School, dividing 250 by 40 weeks, comes out to $6.22. Ms. LaFleur, can you check my math?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
Was okay?
They're checking it while they're checking that. I have enrollment numbers at the South Passos, but I don't know if some kids are 5 days, it's 79 students, but I don't know if some are 5, some are 4 days, some are 3 days. And at West, it's 40 students.
Yes, you're correct.
Oh, my math teachers will be proud of me. Okay. If you do something like that to a program that goes on sliding scale, how does that increase? If we were to vote $250 increase on both of those programs, and it is a sliding scale, do you know how that affects the cost? Does it, I'm assuming it raises the annual rate, and then by that virtue, are people entitled to the same rate of discount by whatever fee they have paid or covered?
We need to bring her in.
I would have to ask Joanne, I wouldn't want to give you misinformation.
Okay.
I don't know if it starts at 250 at the bottom or the top.
Right, with the base. Yeah, with the base pay.
Okay. Could we ask and find out what would be the impact of a $250 per year increase on those programs to mirror what we've already done with the other preschools?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Yeah, I think we need to get some more information on this. I'm trying to figure out why it started this way. Generally, what would happen is if these are, I know they're not EEC contracted, but if they're following the state median income, generally those are written if a family falls below 50% of that. So to qualify, you would be 50% of the state median income based on your family size. And then you would get your, they would calculate your paychecks in accordance to that. During the time that you're enrolled, your income can go up to 85% of the state median income, and you can still qualify. Once you reach 100% of the state median income, then you no longer qualify. I don't know what percentage it's based on, or if it's based on those, why we base it on those. And then usually those slots are income eligible, or if somebody's going to school, those type of things. So to raise, and I agree, I think our preschools should be the same across the board, but I think we need to understand the history of this and why we're at that sliding scale fee. Would she be able to?
I will ask Mrs. Pantapis to either come or get us the information.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I have Mr. Bowie here this evening, and you had some questions for him last night. Mr. Bowie, if you want to join us. So, you had asked for the proposed user fee tiered system that Mr. Boer thought about and came up with a tiered system. And you asked for the area athletic user fees from around surrounding districts, so that's what you're receiving next. These are just proposed. 2, 3, 4, 5.
We are being presented with a proposed user fee tiered system document. Motion to receive by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Arnottis. All in favor of receipt? It's a vote.
So there are two proposals, a tier 1 and a tier 2. Mr. Boer, do you want one of these? Do you have it?
Yeah, I have what I sent you,
Okay.
so. So, looking at, I'm not sure which one you have as 1 or 2.
Football, ice hockey, 200.
Okay, so looking at the Tier 1 system, the proposal would be to have football and ice hockey, which are kind of our more expensive sports to run, at a user fee of $225.
No, 200.
Oh, sorry, 200, I'm sorry. And all other sports at $175 with a family cap of $350. So just looking to kind of bump up the football and ice hockey, by $25. Kind of the second tiered system, just kind of looking would be kind of a little bit more aggressive kind of change, would be football and ice hockey at $225. Other sports that are not track, cheerleading, tennis, or golf, bump up to $200 and keep those other 4 sports, track, cheering, tennis, and golf at $175 with a family cap of $400. I'm looking at user fees and looking at, in particular, ice hockey. I know right now our ice hockey program, both boys and girls, are struggling with enrollment in kids, and I fear moving too high in either one, but that ice hockey would hurt participation and hurt those programs overall.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Boer. Any questions or thoughts? Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Boer, for bringing this information to us and looking into this. I don't know if we're receiving another handout or more information regarding the percentage of the reconditioning of equipment that is attributable to ice hockey. Were you able to find that information out, or?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay,
I'm still.
fair enough. I don't mean to pick on ice hockey. It seems like I might sound that way. I'm a fan. But I think I did some calculations yesterday between ice time rentals, coaches, busing, transportation, without knowing the reconditioning cost for equipment, and there is some. I don't know what it is, but there is some. I think the ice hockey program is costing, or we're paying over $73,000 for that program, for those expenses. I'd be comfortable proposing a user fee for ice hockey in its own tier, somewhere upwards of $750 to $1,000 per player to offset some of those expenses. We just can't, in my opinion, we just can't afford to subsidize an athletic program to that extent under these circumstances. I mean, dare I say, I'd even entertain going without an ice hockey program for a year or two until we can build up numbers. But I would propose a tiered system that would have $750 user fee for hockey, both boys and girls, a $200 user fee for football, and $175 for everyone else, which we already voted on. I don't know what anyone else's thoughts are on that, and I don't know. Actually, I'm going to make that in the form of a motion. I'm going to make a motion to have an ice hockey user fee of $750 per player, with a family cap for a hockey player at $1,000, and then the football user fee at $200 a player, all other sports $175 a player, and the family cap for football and everyone else remain at $350.
Second.
Heard the motion by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mr. Amico. For discussion, Mr. Amico?
Through the chair to Mr. Hockman, would you reconsider and bump that down to maybe $500?
If it would garner support of 3 other members, yes, but I don't know where anyone else. Can we have a little discussion on it before we?
Sure. And my point is, I don't want, through the chair, we may have some hardship cases, and I'd hate to really have a couple of scholar athletes missing out on playing what they love playing, growing up, and just think it's, just to be fair, unless, do booster clubs offer scholarships to kids in hardship cases? I guess that would be through the chair to Mr. Boer. Do you know of any?
So kids that are on free and reduced lunch do not pay user fees. We currently have, probably about over 200 of our athletes that are on free and reduced lunch. And then, if there is other hardships that do come forward, that is also kind of taken into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
I would just say, again, I just don't want to see a user fee be the reason why we don't run a program, or kids don't want to participate in a program, especially a sport like ice hockey.
Sure. And through the chair to Mr. Boer, I wouldn't support eliminating ice hockey, but I do agree with Mr. Hockman that I think every program, every position, everything is on the table here, and we have to find money somewhere. And not really thrilled about doing this, but again, we have to find some dollars to move forward. I'll yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. I think that we already raised the user fee for sports, correct, by $25. At this point, the boys hockey program is suffering already. It's had a lot of downs lately. It's not where it once was. We don't currently have a JV team. I think you said that the current number of boys was 13?
Returning from this year's team would be 13, yes.
Would be 13. And we have 2 for the girls' team. I think raising hockey, football, any of those at this point would probably just completely eliminate the hockey team altogether. I don't think we'd have a team. I don't think we'd have a chance at even bringing it back up to what it once was. So I would definitely not be in favor of raising it in any more than we already have. It's definitely something we can look at in the future, but right now it is struggling, and I don't think $750 per player is going to help it in any way. So I would not support this, and I would be in favor of just leaving our original motion moving forward, that the user fee was increased by $25 across the board.
Thank you. Mr. Arnottis?
Thank you. Just could you run back the motion again? Just the numbers for it?
So the motion
It
was
was 750.
to increase hockey to $750,
to
football
200.
with a cap of 1,000, football at 200, and everything else would remain at 175.
Okay. Couple comments. I agree with Mrs. Carpenter. I do think that is a bridge too far on this, where you're getting to a number where you are almost giving an incentive for people not to play hockey by going up that far. I mean, if we look at what we have here, and I think it's important to mention some of this, the comparable fees that we're looking at. You know, there are more affluent communities on this list who aren't anywhere near that number. I'm open to a conversation on the Tier 1 and Tier 2 numbers that Mr. Bua has presented, but I could not support going up to 500 on that right now.
Thank you. Mr. Hockman?
Just for maybe a point of information, based upon the number of athletes, student athletes who are returning, 15, and the cost in our budget, excluding the reconditioning, which is a variable we don't know, comes to $4,866 per student athlete. We're paying $4,866 per student athlete to play hockey. I'm happy to reduce the fee to $500, as Mr. Amico suggested, if that, again, garners support. If it doesn't, let's take a vote on it and vote it up or down.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Are there any other comments before we go to roll call vote? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
No.
Mr. Alexia?
No.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Arnottis?
No.
Mrs. Dunn?
Any other comments, motions regarding Mr. Bua's appearance today? Mrs. Carpenter?
Can we talk to him about the volleyball? I think there was a question for boys volleyball.
Yeah, in Linfield. If you want to stick to hockey first and go.
Sure.
We just had the question about the user fees for girls' hockey for Linfield and North Reading and PV, how we're co-op.
So yes, with the co-op, we currently, how we structure that co-op is, we break down the cost for the sport, officials, police, game staff, how much the ice costs for games, practice time, this, that, the other, kind of come up with a kind of a per pupil cost, and then take the number of students per school, and then that is what is sent out to the different schools. So Linfield last year had 9 students on the team. North Reading had 10, and they were billed out of a cost of $15, $48, $11 per student is what they were kind of billed out to pay for the co-op.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Bua on that item?
The next item for Mr. Bua was we had a discussion about the $4,500 for the volleyball. It was for equipment and you told me today it was for the equipment and the uniforms.
Yes.
And it's a spring sport, not a fall sport.
Correct.
And any student that wants to play volleyball can play in the fall on the team as well. That is,
Correct. If you don't offer a sport for a gender, the opposing gender can play for another team.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Through the chair, Mr. Brewer, so you would be comfortable in us not starting a boys volleyball program and just incorporating them into the current team that we have?
I'm not sure if kids, if boys would play. I just know that there is interest in starting a boys team at the high school. I've had, a handful of students that have come up to me, and I think the interest is there. I know within the NEC itself, it's a growing sport amongst the different teams in the league as well. I believe there's currently 6 schools that are currently offering boys volleyball.
The interest in the boys volleyball team, you said there's a handful?
Correct, at the moment. That have approached me. They say, hey, me and my friends are looking into want to start a boys volleyball program. So, scientific data to back that up, I don't have. It's just conversations that I've had with about a handful of different students that have at least approached me.
Okay, thank you, I'll yield.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Dunn?
Just a point of information, we have a whole procedure before implementing a sport. Have the students played intramural volleyball yet? Are there any intramural teams for that?
No, not currently. I mean, eventually the process would start as a club sport. You could do that for a season, or for a year before before going up. But even at a club sport level, there are some additional costs that would come with that to have to go up.
Okay, but if you do it at intramurals, we don't need uniforms. We just need a new net and a couple volleyballs. Those should stay in, but the total outfit for a team wouldn't be there in the budget.
Not at an intramural level,
Right.
but I know kids are looking to, I think kind of go beyond what they do in like a gym class. I think they're looking more, trying to play at a kind of a more competitive level.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Mr. Amico?
Thank you, through the chair. I don't know if we did this last night. If not, I'd like to make a motion to pull that off the consideration list, volleyball, the $4,500.
Second.
Heard the motion by Mr. Amico, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Hockman on the motion?
Yeah, so, Mr. Miko, are you saying that we,
To not fund it, to take it off the consideration. I believe, was it $4,500?
Correct.
Okay,
so we're not going to fund it?
we're not going to fund it.
That's the motion, okay.
Any other comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Cuthbert?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
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 Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Any other questions for Mr. Bua? Okay, thank you, Mr. Bua. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item that you have asked me to get some more information about the 3 department heads, the reductions there.
Presented with 3 department head reductions proposal. Motion by Mr. Hockman to receive, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. All in favor of receipt, that's a vote. Ms. Murtak?
The first one is the high school art department head. Currently, the art department head teaches 3 classes with 4 teachers in the department. The proposal for the 1920 school year is 5 classes, including 2 of the FCS classes. What would happen is the shift from 9 to 12 art department would go to the performing arts director, and that is a stipend of $4,500. Do you want me to keep going? Okay. The other 2 department heads, one is K-5 PE and health. They're 3 days in the K-5 schools, and what the proposal is 5 days in the K-5 schools, and it's a reduction of 1.0 to a 0.6 teaching position. That teacher would go back into the classroom, and it would be a reduction of another teacher to a 0.6. That stipend is also $4,500, and that would happen again with the 612 PE Health Department. And those responsibilities would go to the athletic director. So the curriculum meetings, team meetings would go to the athletic director.
Any questions or thoughts? Mrs. Dunn?
I'd like to make a motion to cut the 2 PE Health Department heads. So moved.
Second.
Heard the motion by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Amico. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Okay. Mr. Hockman?
I'd like to make a motion to cut follow the recommendation of the superintendent to reduce the art department head.
Second.
Heard the motion by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mr. Olympio. On the motion, Mr. Amico.
Sure, this is one that I don't want to do, but I will do for the sake of the budget. And I just think that everything's on the table, and I just think that we need to find some money somewhere, so I will support it.
Mrs. Dunn? Andrew?
I'll be voting against this. The savings realized is $4,500. We have numerous high school students who go on to art school. They take every art program they possibly can, and that department is very well run. It has been decimated over the past few years, unfortunately. And it's important to a good percentage of the students in that school. So I'll be voting against that. For that salary, that savings to affect all the students in the art program and the students coming up who are looking forward to preparing for art college, I'm not making that cut.
Mrs. Dunn, can you explain how's it been decimated the last few years?
The numbers of the art teachers continually cut, and
From what to what?
offhand, Mr. Mayor, I couldn't tell you, but I've watched it over the years, and I've seen what happens at the high school with those cuts. They had a very, very vibrant art department at the high school. It's still vibrant, but it's operating on a much smaller scale than it was before. So I know over the years we've cut their supplies to the bone. Art needs a lot of supplies.
Do you have numbers for that? 'Cause
No,
I
I'm
don't
sorry,
think
I
that's
don't.
the case.
The offerings have had to shrink because of the number of teachers, and the interest is still there. So I honestly, I can't do this. I cannot cut that department head. That department has suffered a lot of cuts, and that's $4,500. If I had the money, I'd pay it myself.
I would vote in favor of keeping it, but I'm
Yes.
just wondering about the statement decimated. I'm just not sure if
I'll-
that's a very accurate statement.
I'll pull up the numbers in the
I have them.
handouts.
I have it, but I didn't see
Okay.
that, so.
All right.
Mr. Arnottis?
Thank you. So, I have to say, I'm in the same boat right now as Mr. Amico on this, because this is something I don't want to cut. I know how valuable our art programs are. I know the competitions that take place and the work. Just last night at the awards we saw, I know there were students who were receiving awards, and I know the art department head goes above and beyond on those things, but I don't have $4,500 in this book right now to point to and say that I can keep this. That is my concern here with voting to keep it in the budget right now. Ms. Murtagh, are we confident that the Director of Performing Arts is able to do this work? Because I know that there are so many projects and things of that nature that students enter and compete in. I know the Performing Arts Director already has so much on that person's plate. Are we sure that this person can take this over?
I'm recommending it, and I'm hoping so, and that's my recommendation, and I need to stick with it,
Okay.
yes.
Any other thoughts or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
No.
Mr. Lombardo?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Arnott?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
No.
The next item you asked me, Ms. Dunn asked me to put a custodial plan together. This is just a proposal. I worked with Mr. Hayfie this afternoon on this. So this is the next, for the cuts to the custodians, and then how we would deploy them.
Okay, we've been presented with a proposed custodial plan. Motion received by Mr. Olympio, seconded by Mr. Amico. All in favor of receipt, it's a vote.
Okay, so currently at the Brown and the Carroll, we have 3 custodians. I'm proposing that they be reduced to 2.5. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, they'd go to the Brown School. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they'd go to the Carroll School, that .5 position. And that reduces 1 custodian. At the Burke School, we currently have 2, that would remain. At the center, we currently have 2, that would remain. McCarthy 2, South 2, Welch. Welch has a retirement, so we will have to pull a custodian from a different area to put at the Welch. There's 2 at the West. Currently at the Higgins, there's 3 during the day and 4 in the evening, but 1 is our floater. And at Peabody High, we have currently 3 during the day and 8 at night. So what we are proposing is that one of the evening custodians, or one of the custodians at the high school be moved to the Welch School, and one of the custodians at the high school would be moved to the Higgins to make that whole. So 3 during the day, 4 in the evening. In the floater, 1 floater, we have currently 2 floaters. 1 would go to the Higgins when possible, and 1 would go to the high school when possible.
Any questions on the custodial plan document? Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you through the chair, Ms. Murtagh. These numbers are reflective of the 2 reductions from last night?
Correct, and how I was asked to make a plan for next year if that happened.
Okay. I just want to clarify on this plan, does this have any impact on, like, any of the evening PTO meetings or anything like that at the elementary level?
So what I'm proposing is that all elementary schools close at 7. And then the Higgins and the high school will be opened
Regular?
regular until 10 o'clock.
So this is reflective of a retirement, which will not be filled, and then 1 other position?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Mrs. Dunn?
When we did this in the past to the elementary schools and suggested that they hold their PTO meetings at the Higgins or the high school, it hurt the PTO's membership greatly. And I'm just bringing this up because the PTOs fundraise, and they bring in a lot of money to help our schools and supplement the budgets. And if you hurt the PTOs in this manner, it's going to affect their ability to have parents attending their meetings. When they have little children, they are more apt to be able to attend a meeting at their closest school, which is the elementary school. And when you want them to have their meeting out of the building, it definitely affects membership, it affects attendance at meetings, and that, in turn, drives the ability to hold many of the events that they do. Those are really enriching events. I believe you need to figure out some way to allow the PTOs to continue to meet in their elementary schools.
Just because I'm bothered by the statement, Mrs. Dunn, about decimating the art department, when I did my review, I actually felt it was the opposite, and I just wanted to point out that last year's budget, we had 2 full-time art teachers. This year, we're proposing 4 full-time art teachers, an addition of 2. That's just according to Countable Unit 10. Yeah, it's 2. Budgeted 2. We budgeted 2 last year, we're budgeting 4 this year. I just wanted to make sure that the statement reflects accurately the budget. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Ms. Dunn's point about PTOs, it's a worthwhile and valid point. We do have some floaters at the Higgins, and by way of suggestion to the superintendent, perhaps the floaters at the Higgins or the high school, perhaps we can put through central administration a monthly schedule together. PTOs generally meet once a month, and maybe we can coordinate where neighborhood elementary schools are open to accommodate PTO meetings through the floaters that are already within the budget.
That's a great idea, thank you.
And,
Mrs. Dunn?
Mr. Chairman, we corrected that number of the art teachers in the budget the first night we got the book. It says 2, but it should be 4 in the FY19 on the high school.
No, we had 2 last year's budget. We have 4 this year's
No,
budget.
no, we were told we had 4 in last year's budget.
It was 4 altogether.
We budgeted for 2 art teachers last year, but we have 4 this year, in this year's budget.
But they've all been, with due respect.
No, I know, I just.
I know, this is
You
why
know
this-
I love you, but I just
I
think
know.
this,
And
I just
I
want to
tell
make
you,
sure.
this budget's driving me right out of my
Yeah.
mind, so you
You're
better
one of my
take
favorite people in the
Andrew's
world. I just
microphone away from
disagree
me.
with you on this.
The first night, when we noticed some of these positions were incorrect and we brought it up, that was a correction that was made. And I'll be honest, I know these people because they taught my kids. So, and my kids are all out of college, so they've been up there for a while. We actually cut a teacher last year who ended up here at Higgins. I'm looking for anybody in the room from art. Oh, okay. But anyway, yeah.
No,
But there are 4. Yes. Part of the budget plan. There are 4.
so there's 2, I'm looking at the budget, it says 2 FTEs FY19.
There was really
4.
4 bodies. There was 4 bodies here.
I'm not saying what bodies were, I'm saying what was budgeted. There were 2 budgeted. 4 people got jobs. This year, we have 4 positions. We've actually added to the budget line $174,000. I don't care how many bodies were there, but we're adding $174,000 to that line item this year. I don't care about bodies and who.
Okay.
I'm just saying that the line item this year is being added $174,000 for 2 additional art teachers.
And I have no idea where the other 2 people were, but they were definitely employed and paid and everything last year, so they were somewhere in last year's budget. Apparently not in the art department salary line, but they definitely have been there for a while because...
But you see what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
there.
I do, 'cause
it does say it's
I-
112% increase.
Right, and that's why, when we started going through this, and it was so confusing, I will be honest with you, I went home and watched the tape, because I cannot figure out this budget. It is absolutely impossible for me to feel secure with some of these things, because I'm finding errors that I just happen to know, and I'm seeing them in the book. You know, we're finding things that are incorrect, and I'm asking about the bottom line, and I'm told the bottom line is right when I'm looking at figures in here that aren't right. The math doesn't add up. And that was one where we corrected it right away. There are several others. And you can see where my frustration is coming from, and I actually think I might be speaking for the other members too, because this is really very, very difficult when I still have my copy from last year. I can check it. I figured it was a typographical error. I keep finding these. It's really it's really very, very difficult to read this budget and to be able to argue properly. Some of the things I'm saying, you obviously don't know where I'm coming from on them, and that's why, because I know a different reality.
Well, that's what's, it's confusing, and this isn't Ms. Murtag's budget, she's correcting
I know.
previous budgets, but
Yeah.
that's why this year, though, we are adding $174,000 to that line item. We have an outstanding art department. I
We
don't
do.
want to mess with that, we have to keep that, but, but I just wanted to make sure it was clear, because, yeah, I mean, there must have been some error in last year's budget, but this year's budget, you know, with the difficult discussions we're having, we're actually adding $174,000 because we want to keep that department intact.
Yeah.
Because it's important.
Yeah.
As all departments are.
Honestly, the person who did get cut last year and came to Higgins, luckily, we didn't lose the talent of that teacher, but there was enough class interest at the high school to have kept that person in the end. And so there are a lot of students who have not received the art that they could have because we ended up cutting a position and sending the person down here.
Okay.
So,
No, I think we're
Sorry.
in agreement on this. I just think the numbers are a little different. And now I think they're clarified with this budget, but according to last year's budget, we have gone up. That is not a place I want to mess with.
Right, no.
We have an excellent art department, and you're right. They're doing all they can to keep the programs going, so.
Yeah.
I was just concerned because when I was reviewing the budget, I saw that was a large increase. And your words kind of just concerned me, and I just wanted to try to straighten that out. But again, that's not Ms. Murtag's budget. She's bringing the real numbers here to try to figure this out. And, you know, that's kind of where we are. We just got to work through this.
Yeah.
That's why we need to go through Accountable Unit 10, which we did do a couple days ago to try to straighten this out.
right.
So I think you and I are, yeah, I mean, we're
Okay now.
okay now.
Keep you in line.
Any questions on custodial plan? Mr. Amico?
Through the chair to the committee, and in between there, I did want to mention the PTOs because they did come up, and we're just so very fortunate here in Peabody to have great parents, and if they didn't do all that they did, this budget would probably be a lot worse than it is, because they come out in droves, and I do think they would be challenged by that time slot if we do close buildings earlier. But they're so resilient. We get emails all the time. They're incredible on social media. So I just wanted to take a second to thank the PTOs for all they do, and we'll figure out the hours on the buildings. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on the custodial plan? Okay. Okay, now next.
Vote on it, I think. Oh, you said just first.
So we voted last night to cut the two custodial positions,
One through attrition.
both through attrition.
One through attrition.
One.
Mr. Olympio?
Yeah, no, through the chair. So, Ms. Murtagh, you're not, so this is sort of your bare bones plan. You don't see any room for any more cuts. Would really put us in a tough spot if we were to cut one more custodian, say, from the high school at night.
We would be put in a tough spot. Perhaps one of the floaters, but I think we, right now, should hold off, but I'll keep a floater in mind.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, then, next information you asked me to get was about crossing guards. And we do have Detective Russell here tonight, but I would like to turn it over to Mr. Farrell, who got the information for us today. He needs a mic.
Thank you. So the questions last night, I believe, had to do with the spares. So there actually are 5 spares. Mr. Russell, save me if I don't get the right information here, but I believe you wanted to find out more information on what they do and what they contribute. So there's a list of items here. They do arrive at the Peabody Police Station to wait their assignments. They deliver equipment and report any missing or broken equipment to all the crossing guards. They also are responsible for training all new hired crossing guards. Spears, they're also dispatched by the supervisor to cover assigned crosswalks. Some of them are on the other side of town compared to where they're starting off. Wintertime, they also check the crosswalks to ensure appropriate access, as well as where the snowbanks are, report conditions back to the supervisor, who would report it to the city DPW. So with that, and there was a question also regarding the FTE. So the full-time equivalent on your report, again, these are crossing guards. They're not, the FTE is a little bit different than, the teacher FTE, et cetera. However, the 5 that are on there are the Spears. Talking to Detective Russell, if you were looking at moving forward, they could drop from 5 to 3 Spears. In addition, could drop, so they work on what we call tours. Currently, those Spears are on 5 tours. They could drop to 4 tours. And to do the math for you a little bit, dropping 2 of the Spears would save the district, as you can see from the budget sheet there. That amount would come out to $27,772.44. If we drop the tours from 5 to 4, that would save you another $5,999.64. That'd be a total savings of $33,772.08. I have some other numbers here that regarding the amount of work the Spears do, which is considerable. They do cover, the absenteeism or when regular crosswalk guards are out. Their coverage is quite a bit, and I'll answer any other questions that I'm capable of. Otherwise, I'll have Mr. Russell answer those for you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Thank you, Detective Russell, for being here. Any questions regarding the information you just heard? Mr. Hockman?
Thank you. Mr. Farrell, can you tell us how much a crossing guard makes per day?
So it's based on an hourly rate, and that's a contracted rate. So the rate going into FY '20, here, I believe it's $15.12 per hour.
And what's a shift for a crossing guard?
So it's typically 2 hours a day times 180 days.
Okay. So $30 a day. Is that what you just said? $15 an hour?
15, 20, yeah.
$30 a day. We have 5. Did you say they're called floaters? Is that the title?
They call them spares.
Spares, excuse me. And I don't mean any disrespect to the 5 spares. I'm sure they work hard and they perform a important function. But we have 5 spares who are in our budget for $69,431.10. A substitute or a fill-in crossing guard would cost us $30 a day. I'm going to make a motion to reduce the 5 FTE crossing guards and add a substitute crossing guard line of $3,000.
You heard the motion by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mr. Arnottis. On the motion, Mr. Olympio?
Yeah, through the chair, I mean, is there a market for substitute crossing guards? I'm just curious. I mean, have we done that in the past?
Detective Russell, would you like to join us? Right over here.
We have a spot,
No, right over
Steve.
here.
Sorry, what was the question?
Is there bodies able to substitute as crossing guards in your experience? Have we done something like this before, where we've called on substitutes for crossing guards?
The reason why we use the word spares is
Yeah.
because they don't have an assigned crosswalk every day.
Right.
So when they come in, they report to the PVD police station, they come in every day.
Right.
And then they go to, if there's crosswalks that are called in, they are dispatched, to that open crosswalk. So some would be Burke School area, McCarthy School area, and what have you. So they go from the Cleveland Police Station, they go to that crosswalk. So the time that they work, instead of being, it ends up being like an hour and 45 minutes per shift rather than the 45 or 50 minutes that they do if they're not dispatched.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we did away with the spares, how practical would it be to call on people to substitute? I mean,
I can't get people to come in to work as a crossing guard. When somebody leaves,
Yeah,
it's extremely hard to try to find somebody that's going to come in to be a crossing guard.
okay, that's
It's not something that gets filled very easily.
it's not as easy as, say, a substitute teacher.
So Detective, right now you have 5 spares. You think 3 could work?
3 would be the minimum. The year before, we averaged about 4.5 a day to go out to cover crosswalks. This year, it's like 3. We average like 3 spares go out of work a day. So, and it's up and down, so you can't have any cut figure as far as, it's going to always be 4, it's always going to be 3. It could be up or down. 3 would be the bare minimum that I would feel comfortable with working. And since I've been doing this job, we haven't had one accident with a kid crossing the crosswalk during school hours. So we've been very fortunate.
Yeah, and without question, the crossing guards perform a very, very valuable function in terms of safety, and that's what I think would be difficult to have, to be able to call crossing guards to come in as substitutes. I think if we could go from 5 to 3, and we can make that work, I think that might be the way to go here, but that might be a bit of a risk going to, or relying on substitutes. That's just my feeling. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Detective Russell, what do the spares do when they're not assigned to a crosswalk? They report every day? What are they doing during those
When they come in,
hours?
if they're not dispatched in open crosswalk, they leave and they go to different locations and they monitor the crossing guards. The problem that we have is that when the crossing guard is at the crosswalk for a certain length of time, they get into a groove. They know what time the kids show up. They know how long they should be. They head count and they leave. So it may be they're hired for an hour or 45 minutes. They only may stay 25 or 30 minutes. So what they do is when the crossing guards know that there is somebody that monitors their comings and goings, whether it's in the morning or the afternoon, they tend to stay with the time that they're supposed to be there, instead of cutting it short. They deliver, if there's equipment that needs to be delivered or whatever, I order it, I pick it up, they are dispatched, they take care of delivering the equipment. Any problems that crossing guards have, they take that information and they bring it back.
And then as coordinator, what are your duties? Do you check in through the day to make sure everybody's, every station is manned? Or?
Yeah, they report to me, they report to me if there's any inconsistencies with what's supposed to be. If somebody's not there, if somebody's arriving late, some people they forget to call in the morning. They call in to me at my voicemail at the school department. And sometimes they forget to call in. So now the crosswalk is going to go uncovered until somebody finds out that it's, one of the spares finds out that it's open, and then they will stop, cover it. If somebody gets a little late getting there due to traffic, due to snow, or whatever the case is, they will cover that crosswalk until that crossing guard arrives, and then they leave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Amico?
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, Detective Russell, for explaining that. And I guess I'll go to Mr. Hockman on this. Would you reconsider and move that to 3 versus the 5? Amend your motion?
If I can have a little more of a time to respond than a yes or no. My answer is no, and even if I were to do that, I'm not sure I hear the justification for these 5 spares at 1.0 FTE when every other crossing guard is at 0.4 FTE. This is an easy one for me, I hate to tell you. I'm talking about bodies in front of students who are teaching, and we're talking about art programs that we want to provide enrichment for our kids. Again, first of all, no one in the audience should mistake any of these motions or any of these thoughts with a willingness or a desire to do this. This is, we're in the, we're not even close to getting to the bottom of this budget. And we're talking about 5 people that may be dispatched or may not be dispatched, and I don't know what kind of training goes into a crossing guard. I'm not sure how long that takes. We have a supervisor as well, and there are some, I have questions, we're going to get to that I think next, but this is $70,000. If this was a $5,000 line or a $10,000 line, maybe I could live with that, but we're talking about $70,000. We're talking about a teacher's salary. I mean, we're not taking crossing guards off of the corners. The 24 corners that have crosses are being covered. We don't have 5 substitute teachers sitting outside of Ms. Mertag's office waiting to see if they need to be called, and if they're not needed, we don't pay them, right? I appreciate the work that's done by this team of crossing guards. I can't justify 5 surplus in the budget, and that's what it seems to me. There are 5 surplus crossing guards. So respectfully, Mr. Amico, no.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman.
Through the chair to the committee. And the only reason why I asked you to reconsider and amend your vote from 5 to 3 is, and Detective Russell did convince me on one thing, if we do have one person who calls in sick, a crossing guard, and we don't have anyone to fill that slot, and we do have someone sitting at the police station that can fill that spot, that's a safety issue for me. And safety comes first, children come first, and I value teachers more than anything. I am a teacher. So the only reason why I bring that part up is I'm thinking safety, and I'm thinking that early morning in February when we don't have a crossing guard at the corner of Lynn Street and Linfield Street because someone called in sick and we don't have a spare person to go out there. I think the investment of 1 to 2 or maybe 3 crossing guards for the year might be a lifesaver. I hate to get to that point, but safety is important to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Olympia?
Yeah, through the chair, I agree with Mr. Amico on that. I would be comfortable with 3 and take the recommendation of the detective. Safety, yeah, it's just that one time that if we don't have any people available and God forbid something happens in the early February, yeah, it's just, I agree with Mr. Amico.
Thank you. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. I definitely see both sides to this, but I have a question. I have 2 questions. Why are the spares considered 1 FTE? And does that, why do they make more than the person that is out on the street? And do they get benefits? Does that 1 FTE get them up to 20 hours? No.
No.
Okay, so why does the spare considered 1 FTE and make more money than the person that's in the crosswalk?
Do you want to answer that?
They're working more hours.
They work more than the 2 hours a day that the person in the crosswalk?
That's correct.
Why?
I don't have that answer.
Detective Russell, can you explain that?
They work more hours. If they end up being dispatched, they end up working an hour or 50 minutes more than the regular crossing guard. When I hire crossing guards, I hire crossing guards that are close to where they live, to make it easier for them to get to their crosswalk, and they will show up in lousy weather, snowy weather, whatever. A spare would have to, if we use West Peabody, they would have to leave the Peabody Police Station, and they would have to drive to the Burke School, or they would have, there's couple crosswalks up there, they'd have to drive to McCarthy School. So now they're gonna drive 7 miles up, 7 miles back. With a regular crossing guard is probably within a quarter of a mile or half a mile from their house.
So if I may, so the crossing guards that are hired based on where they live to the school?
When I hire them, that's who usually calls in, because either their child goes or a neighbor's kid goes, and they know there's an open crosswalk. So I try to keep them close as I can to the schools. Some may take a job that's a little further away, knowing that if something else comes up closer to where they live, they have first shot at that, and then I fill the further one away.
So is there a situation where we can have spares that are not at the full-time rate of 13 and stay at home and wait for the call?
But the spares also go out and they check on crosswalks. They monitor people. They sort of keep people, the crossing guards, honest as far as showing up on time, staying the times that they're supposed to be there. So it's another added safety feature, because they will get into a rut. They'll head count. When they know they have 10 kids, when the 10th kid crosses, they're gone. So they prevent that from happening, because the crossing, and when I interview them, when I hire them, I tell them that they are monitored, they will be checked on. There are people that will check on either in the morning or check them in the afternoon. So it tends to makes it a safety factor that they will be there when they're supposed to be there.
I understand what you're saying. It sounds like a supervisor, like they're going around as a supervisor when they're not being used.
They assist me, because it's so, the way that the crosswalks are set up, one person could probably only get to 2 or 3.
Do the principals check those crosswalks as well?
Yeah, shaking their heads, yes.
Yes. And custodians within the buildings?
And some crosswalks are close enough around the schools that they can, Carroll School's a great example. There's 4 or 5 that are right, or 3 or 4 that are right there that the principal will get out and walk around the street, and they can see the crossing guards. But if you have Abington and Gardner, or you have it Aborn and Sutton and Aborn, or Putnam and Aborn, or Clement and Putnam.
No, I appreciate the information you're giving me, and as other committee members have said, this is, we're talking for hours over, $5,000 here, $400, $1,300. Safety is of the utmost importance, and I have to tell you, I'm one of the school committee members a few years ago who added a few crossing guards because I wanted more safety. But when we are coming down to this, I think we need to come up with a better plan for what are considered spares. With your assistance, if we can come up with a better plan, but I don't think I can support 5 spares at a 1 FTE at a higher rate than the person that's standing out in the crosswalk. I respect them, I appreciate them, they're very important, but I think we're gonna have to do something in that regard.
Thank you. Any other comments? We do have a motion on the floor.
Can you repeat? What do we have?
Motion is to eliminate the 5 spares.
And add a line for substitutes for $3,000.
So on that motion, I need another plan, not just to eliminate them. I mean, I can't support that without another plan, but I'm in agreement as to a reduction of spares and some change to it.
Okay, Mr. Amico?
On the motion, I say we vote for the motion, and then if you'd like to make a motion to do something other than that, we can do that as well. I'd actually make a motion after that.
Mr. Mayor, call the motion.
Okay. Roll call on the motion by Mr. Hockman.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Olympia?
No.
Mr. Amico?
No.
Mr. Arnott?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Detective Carson.
Mrs. Dunn?
Here.
I'm sorry, Detective, can you hold on one more moment, please?
I'd like to make a motion that the 5 full-time positions that we cut just be kept at .40, and that those people be utilized out in the field.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mrs. Dunn to change those 5 spares from 1.0 FTEs to a .4 FTE. That's your motion?
Yes.
Seconded by Mr. Amico. For discussion, Mr. Amico?
I won't support that, but I would have another motion to counter that. Would you reconsider dropping down to either 2 FTEs on that, having 2 spares versus the 3?
If I may.
Yeah, Ms. Dunn, to you.
The reason that I suggest that we go back, go down to those numbers and keep those positions, the position in the budget is to cover a cost of being able to call in substitute crossing guards just the way we call in substitute teachers. If someone's interested in being a crossing guard and wants to make some extra money, they would be on a list, and if we needed them in the morning, we would call. If crossing guards know they're going to be out the next day, I would assume it's just like a substitute teacher. You have to call the night before. Something happens in the morning. We have bus drivers that are out early. We have teachers getting in early. We're able to do it on all those other positions. I think we should be able to do it with the crossing guards. I'll be honest, I think it's probably one of the toughest jobs around, especially when you're in miserable weather like this, or even in the winter. I see the crossing guards out there shoveling their post, and it's really an amazing effort on their part, because they become friendly with the kids feel safe with the crossing guards coming through. But in this type of a budget and looking at this type of a system, I just can't imagine having the, we have 24 crossing guards, we have 5 who are waiting to go out and take their place. The 5 apparently have some duties around, checking in on people, but that type of a ratio, we don't have that in the schools. So that's why I'm making that type of a motion.
On the motion, Mr. Amico?
Through the chair to Mr. LaFleur, what is the difference monetarily going from eliminating the 5 1.0s to adding the, is it 4, Ms. Dunn?
It would be to make those,
All 5.4s?
make all 5.4s. Because we have a supervisor.
Excuse me, a 1.0 FTE comes out to $13,886.22, and a .4 is $55,54.49, for a difference of $83,31.73 each. For five individuals, it would be $41,658.65.
You still have the floor, Mr.
Sure.
Amico.
And what would be the net from the original, from the 1.0s? Was that 73,000?
69,431.
69, okay. So there was a savings there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments before we vote on the motion? Okay, we'll now vote on, roll call vote for Mrs. Dunn's motion, please.
Can you repeat the motion again?
The motion is to go from this 5 spares would become, instead of 1.0 FTEs, they'd become 0.4 FTEs. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Harper?
No.
Mrs. Pemberton?
No.
Mr. Olympia?
No.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Arnott?
No.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Any other motions or questions for Detective Russell, Mr. Hockman?
Through you to the superintendent. Superintendent, yesterday's meeting, we talked about the supervisory role of the crossing guard and whether or not that could be absorbed by the Department of Transportation supervisor. Were you able to find any information out about that?
I'm still working on that, 2 different units, so I'm working on that.
I'll hold in on that.
Okay, anything else for Detective Russell?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Detective Russell.
All right, at this time, I'd like to take a break.
Can I just make 2 quick motions? Or 1, maybe?
Okay, I'm sorry, pertaining to this, or pertaining to one?
The budget, but not...
Okay, we'll go to those motions, Mr. Hockman. We have this regular school committee meeting at 7. I know we have a number of students here, so I wanted to try to meet that. But no, if you have a couple of motions.
Just quickly, I think there was a corresponding motion to the department head. There was a .5 FTE
Yeah.
elementary in Higgins teacher, so I'd make the motion to follow the recommendation of the superintendent with regard to that reduction.
Second.
Does everyone
No, where are we now?
know where we are with Mr. Hockman's motion? This is on list A. This is the reduction on,
Oh. I gotta find my paper. It's on the big
Read it.
one.
yeah, right here.
Elementary.
This is by eliminating the health and phys ed stipends for the department head.
It's a
No.
.6, not a .5, and it's at 26,000.
This one right here, elementary Higgins Middle School teachers, .5.
Okay.
Yeah.
On your sheets, it's it would be a .6 position, that's 3 days a week, so the reduction would be a .4, not a .5, and it's $26,000.
So amended.
Is, okay, is that
Second.
health insurance and everything? Okay. Motion made by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mr. Amico. Any comments on the motion?
Just
Mrs.
an
Carpenter?
explanation of the difference for that reduction if it reduces the impact.
The impact, we reduced for elementary classrooms, so would be on point.
Okay.
So on the sheet we have on list A, it would be a $36,775 reduction, but because it's a .4, it would actually be $6,000 less. So this would be a $31,000 reduction. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Is there another motion you wanted to make, or?
Might not be so quick, so maybe we'll
Okay.
take a break.
If there's no objection, I'd like to suspend the budget meeting, go to our regular scheduled school committee meeting. As I said, we have a number of students here today that I wanted to bring them in. Then we will resume the budget meeting directly following the regular school committee meeting. Is that okay? All right, we'll take a 2-minute break and start in 2 minutes. Okay, I'd like to call the regular school committee meeting to order, today being May 14th, 2009. The meeting tonight is being recorded by the Peabody School Committee's recording secretary, Leanna Harris, and we also being broadcast live on Peabody Access Telecommunications, PAT. The matters on our agenda tonight are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. I'd like to first start the meeting, if everybody could please stand for a moment of silence. Great, thank you. And now we are going to have an introduction of some students that are with us today. And typically, Ms. Murtagh reads the names and some information on each student. Because I know each of the 4 students and I know their families, she graciously is allowing me to introduce our students today. So our first 2 students are from the Burke School, Burke Tigers. Our first is Kevin Nobile. Kevin is a 5th grade student at the Burke School. He is the son of Kevin and Deanna Nobile. Kevin has a sister, Haley, in the 7th grade at the Higgins Middle School. Kevin enjoys science and sports. He loves football and going to the lake in New Hampshire with his family. Kevin is looking forward to the Higgins in the fall and has a goal of becoming an engineer in the future. Welcome, Kevin. And also we have Haley Collins. Haley is a 5th grade student at the Burke School. She's the daughter of Mark and Nicole. She has an older sister, Megan, in the middle school and a younger sister, Mia, in kindergarten at the Burke. Haley enjoys writing, swimming, and dance. Haley is looking forward to joining her sister next year at the Higgins and hopes one day to be a veterinarian. Welcome, Haley. We also have 2 students from the West School. Jacob Cranston is a 5th grade student at the West. He is a natural leader in the classroom who is motivated to succeed. Jacob is a positive community member who is not afraid to try new things. He has a positive and energetic personality that is contagious to all around him. Jacob is a strong academic student with artistic ability to create fine works of art. Welcome, Jacob. And we have Lizzie Betancourt. Lizzie is a remarkable athlete playing volleyball, softball, and basketball. She's a kind and thoughtful person who is always there to help her fellow students and teachers. She is a talented student who has a true love of learning. She always goes above and beyond in her sports and academics. Welcome, Lizzie. So why don't you 4 come right up here and meet me, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance together.
Thank you so much. Yes, sure.
Ms. Murtagh, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I would like to invite Mr. Kohler and Mrs. Beacott up to talk about the West and Burke School Peabody Gives project for this month.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and school committee members. This month, the Burke and the West had the privilege of doing Peabody Gives together. We teamed up. The initiative was centered around both children's and mental health awareness in general, because this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And rather than us speaking a lot about it, we thought we'd put our students up here to tell you what they did this month.
Jacob, you want to start us off, Craig?
Okay. Hello. Me and Lizzie are part of the 5th grade leadership team at the West School for the month of May.
We help the school by supporting activities such as shout-outs for acts of kindness and community service projects.
We support the things we have learned in our social thinking guidance lessons that occur in all of our classrooms.
In May, the service project is in support of mental health awareness, as May is Mental Health Awareness Month. The project extends across the district as the Peabody Gives initiative,
in an effort to foster kindness and stop the stigma of mental health.
On May 6th, Children's Mental Health Awareness Day, everyone was asked to wear green.
And 10,000 kindness cards were donated by a West School grandparent and given to every student and staff member in Peabody.
Students were asked to perform an act of kindness and pass the card along to the receiver of that act.
Teachers helped by modeling this process in their classrooms.
The goal is to create a wave or chain of kindness across the city with people being kind and passing the card along.
Kindness posters were also donated by the Burke and distributed to every school. And now, we're going to give you some kindness cards so you will spread them and make a kindness chain.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, buddy.
Look at this.
So much. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. Well, thank you. Scott, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you very much.
We're gonna need these.
Oh, that's funny.
I think I want to invite these two to every meeting.
Oh, we're still.
Can they stay for the budget?
Great.
All right, so some of my Burke School friends are going to talk about the posters that we gave out to each school across the city with the hopes of really getting people to talk about mental health and knowing where to get help. So Kevin and Haley are going to talk about each one of the posters that we gave out.
Great.
So one way is that you would get a good night's sleep to have your brain well rested and ready for the next day.
Great.
Another way is to speak out. Don't be scared to ask your teachers questions and spread your feelings with friends. Don't be scared to ask.
So we have some posters that we're going to give to everybody here that's all about being kind to your mind and remembering to connect to other people through kindness cards, taking time to relax and really reset yourself. Certainly, mindfulness is something that we work on across the city, so this is just a reminder to everybody that we hope people can take home with them and just kind of remember how to stay healthy in your own mind.
Great. Great, Kevin and Haley, thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Kevin.
Thank you, Mrs. Peapod. Thank you, Ms. Nicola. Thank you, everybody from the West and the Burke.
Thank you. Good job, Kevin. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. What a gentleman. Thank you.
Haley, great job.
Thank you.
If there's no objection, I'd like to go out of order. We also have a number of students here for the start team, and we wanted to, if there's no objection, we'd like to go
No objection.
straight to them so they can go home and work on their homework all night.
So this evening we have Miss Emily Moore. She is the digital learning coach here at the Higgins Middle School, and we are so fortunate to have some of our members of our start team, and they will explain what they do on a day-to-day basis. Welcome, everybody. Please introduce yourselves first.
Okay. I'm Victoria Shaw.
I'm Isabella Pereira.
I'm Isabella Pereira. And we're some of the members of the Higgins Middle School's Student Technology Assistance and Resource Team, better known as START. Here within the school, along with our digital learning coach, Ms. Moore, and our IT specialist, Eli Blinderman, we run the help desk and print shop.
So Help Desk is a student-run program where we troubleshoot and repair Chromebooks here for our students and teachers.
And in print shop, which is very much student-run, we make all of the posters and stickers and magnets, laminate things, do anything along those lines for our teachers. So any of the visual displays, things like that.
Great.
Scoop.
Hi, I'm Isabella Turco, and one of our upcoming projects is a makerspace introducing problem-solving activities to the 6th grade students during their cluster time. We recently received a Best Bet grant from the Peabody Education Foundation, which we are using to fund this project. We will enter the 6th grade classrooms and present them with a common problem. Their goal is to create and design a prototype which they can use to solve the problem they were presented with.
My name is Cameron King. To further prepare us for this project, we traveled to 5 out of the 8 elementary schools where we engaged 4th and 5th graders in a similar project. Our goal is to carry out this project through the rest of the school year and next year to secure a permanent makerspace in Higgins.
Just recently, our program was invited to attend MassQ's Education Evolution program at the State House. There, we will have the opportunity to speak to state legislatures about how we use technology at the Higgins Middle School and how essential it truly is in the classroom.
Smartboards, Wi-Fi, and laptops are used daily by students at the Higgins Middle School. We hope to show our legislature that technology is a valuable tool that should be heavily implemented in classrooms. Switch.
Hi, I'm Nikos. Another one of our goals is to educate students on how to use technology responsibly. In class, START members are learning about digital citizenship and how to be safe online. After learning about digital citizenship, we then went into the 6th grade classrooms to teach them. We had the students work together to solve a digital breakout game. The breakout game worked very well in teaching the students about digital citizenship and how to be safe online. And after noticing how well this taught them, we then started working on how to further expand our lessons.
Hi, I'm Bruno. Our latest project that the 7th graders are currently working on is Tech Talk Tuesday. Tech Talk Tuesday is a short video series in which we teach and educate about Chromebook care and digital citizenship. Our plan is to broadcast this video series not only to the students here at the Higgins, but the 5th graders across the Peabody elementary schools. Does anyone have any questions?
Great. Well, thank all of you for being here. That was terrific, very well explained. Open it up for any comments or questions for our students today. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. I just want to thank you all for coming here and presenting so wonderfully. Some of us had an opportunity to experience some of the things that you're talking about on Student Government Day. We came here into the library, and I, in particular, got to experience the print shop. Yep, I remember. You did a great job. The Chromebooks that were opened up, we got to look inside of those. There were some little rolling robots that we got to do on the computer to make them move.
Sparrows.
Yeah, I got to do that. I wasn't very good at it. Then we had a green screen over here. We got to put Miss Murtagh in a canoe going down the rapids, I think it was. I think there is a where's the poster? We should put it up. Yeah, right there. So I just want to say great job, and I'm so excited to see you continue on these ventures, and you're definitely supported, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Any other? Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yes, we really did have a fun time on Student Government Day. I am really pleased to see all of you here and to hear such a great presentation, and thrilled that you're going to go into the State House and let everyone in there understand the value of technology and how you're making such good use of it. You're teaching, the younger kids about the importance of safety online and how to use the technology, and just very proud of you. You're very good representatives of Peabody, and thank you, and good luck at the State House.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well said, Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Arnottis?
Well, thank you guys for coming tonight. This is really impressive. They didn't have this when I went through Higgins years ago. Well, not too long ago, but long enough ago. I haven't seen the print shop yet. I keep hearing about how impressive it is. So at some point,
We can take you in.
oh, I'll come by. Yeah. Oh, that will probably be the best thing we do tonight. Yeah. But when are you coming to the State House?
June 5th.
June
Yeah,
5th.
4 of us will be there on June 5th. 4 others, we went to Gillette Stadium back in October to talk about the program.
Awesome.
For MassQ, their big fall conference, they also presented at as well.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. Awesome. We'll see you then.
Great. Well, thank you for being here, and I just got to say, each of you spoke wonderfully and really articulated excellent everything about the program, so thank each of you for being here, and looking forward to the next steps. Great, thank you. Okay. I will go back to the agenda and approval of minutes. We do have some meeting minutes to approve. First is the April 23rd, 2019 regular school committee meeting.
Motion to receive and approve.
Heard the motion to
Second.
approve by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Hockman. Roll call vote, please, for approval.
Yes.
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 Thank you. We also have April 30, 2019 budget meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Heard the motion by Mr. Arnottis for approval, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Great. We also have May 6, 2019 budget meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Heard the motion for approval by Mr. Arnottis, seconded by Mr. Amico. Roll call vote, please, for approval.
Yes.
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 Okay, we have approval of, thank you. We have approval of bills. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant A number 4156 dated May 14th, 2019, in the amount of $129,194.64, subject to audit.
Second.
Okay. Further motion by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. Limpio for approval of warrant A number 4156. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Had to think about it.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant B number 4157 in the amount of $707,401.10, dated May 14th, 2019, subject to audit.
Second.
Great. You've heard the motion for approval of warrant B number 4157. It was made by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. Limpio. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 That's
Great.
all, thank you.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Next item is continued business. Only item today is the MSBA Higgins project. Mrs. Dunn, anything new to report?
Yes, actually, I'm happy to report that one of the last items to be checked off on our closeout at the Higgins has been completed. We received the approval of the Conservation Commission on our long-term pollution prevention plan and snow removal plan. So the Higgins project will be closing soon.
Great.
And we're still working on the grass. Just so
Yes.
everyone knows.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Next item, public participation. Is there anyone that would like to speak? The microphone is open. Superintendents?
I have to ask if everything was figured out earlier. Is this public to anybody? Is there like an art teacher discretion that I could advocate for?
Well,
I can introduce myself and then you can just tell me to not talk if that's better.
I will not do that to you. No, please go ahead, Ms. Gore.
My name is Melissa. I went to PBD High, graduated in '99. I've taught there since '04, a product of the programs, and I'm nervous that there won't be any left when my kids are there. I'm gonna cry. It's right here. I'm just watching this art department dwindle and slowly become nothing, and it almost seems like the harder we work, the more we're punished. And I know for a fact that our department head, Katie Millman, works harder and longer than almost anyone I know in that building. And it seems as though because she's so dedicated and so good at her job, she's being targeted. And I'm not going to make this more complicated than it is, but I'm almost begging you to really reconsider how important art education is. I don't understand the hypocrisy in starting a black box theater but not supporting the arts. We're asking for artists to paint murals, which I have 6 of, and I just got hired to do 2 more, but you don't have an art education program that's being supported. In business, you're right, it's competitive, and school is competitive, and education is competitive. So let's think of this like a business. I'm your employee. Our store looks really bad. All the other stores look way better. Our product, what we sell, is just as good as everyone else's, but you're taking it off our shelves, and our customers aren't coming here, because it doesn't look like it's the right place for them, but it is. We need, even if we had a new store, a new school, if how we think doesn't change, it doesn't matter. If how we don't respect our educators doesn't change, it's not going to matter what the school looks like. I just need you to understand that, like, it's really, really, really important that the arts are fostered. Because if there's one thing that kids are coming back from the Essex Tech for, it's the arts. I have dozens of kids that you mentioned, there's almost 90 of them going there next year. Do you know the numbers for how many leave the tech and come to the high school? I don't know the numbers, but there's a lot. And every time they come, I ask them, what do you like better? Can you compare, contrast? They always say two things. They like the courses that they have, they can be part of. They select their future. They decide what they want to try. And they can't do that at the tech. And I'm going to brag. They like us better. They like the teachers better. We're masters of this craft. Of course we are. Look where we came from. You too, sir. Look at who taught us. They're here still advocating for us 5 decades later. That's insane. It's in our blood. You can't, I'm sweating because I'm so into this right now. I'm so passionate, and I know you are too, from your suit and tie standpoint and from my paint-covered fingernail standpoint. We are in this for the kids. And like, if you don't put us on the list, the kids are never gonna be first. You can't put us last. You can't, I'm sorry for making a fool of myself, but like, honestly, I'm so passionate about this, and I've just almost bit my tongue off so many times. Like, we went from 7 teachers to 6 to 5 to 4. And pretty soon it's gonna be me. And I'm gonna be the one who leaves. And then there won't be anyone there to do this craziness. I'm the next one. And we're gonna lose a librarian who just has a brand new baby. And if I knock the teacher from the Higgins, he has a brand new baby, and he's also an alum. This is how we treat our alum. His wife works in the system, taught my kid. What kind of cycle is this? It doesn't seem like, it's definitely not a circle. It's not come back yet. I'm giving and giving and giving and giving, and here we are begging for you to just listen to us. But who are you asking these numbers for? Have you come in? Have you spoken to the kids? Have you spoken to the teachers? Have you been there other than dropping off recycling at my classroom, which I'm so grateful for because I see you? Have you been there? Have you asked? Have you said, like, hey, kids, what's going on in this building? How's it working out for everyone? Because that's important. You want their feedback, too. They're the customers. They should be right. Ooh, I have to stop. My blood pressure.
Well, thank you, Melissa.
Sorry, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? The microphone is open.
Michaeline Haig, 51 years at Peabody, all my career in this particular district. And I think why we are so concerned, as I know you are all concerned as well, especially at the high school, where we have been hit by so many of the cuts in the past years because of the declining enrollment. What really has to be understood is that the high school is not the building, this bad building that we have, which eventually will have to be replaced. The high school is the people that are in that building, and people who are dedicated, who have been there for a very, very long time. Stable faculty, a faculty dedicated to making this the best that we possibly can. We are in competition with a lot of private schools in our area as well, and it has always been part of our mission to level that playing field, to prepare our students as well as we possibly can to compete with those students when all of them go on to other schools. This is the reason why we show up at these budget meetings. It's the reason why we show up every day at school. It's the reason why we try to raise our children, and that's what they are. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up on this as well too. to move into the world in a successful way, in whatever way that they want to be. We are a comprehensive high school, and that means that we have to work together in many, many disciplines, many different fields, in order to help our students see the relationships there and to give them the opportunities to develop their potential when they leave us. This is college and career readiness. This is military readiness. This is family readiness. This is not just a school where we're looking at numbers of people to fill in certain slots. This is a school where the people who are there are acting as role models for the students that are in front of them. This is a school where we try to deliver the best education that we can, given the knowledge that we have, and under the duresses that we have, as you do as well, with state mandates and all those other kinds of things. And we would hope that when you consider the cuts that we know are also agonizing to you, that you realize that these are people that we are talking about, and not just the staff, not just the clerks, not just the paraprofessionals, and believe me, we can't do some of our jobs without those people to help us as well. We are talking about the real people, and that is the students, the children of the people in the city of Peabody. And if we want them to be able to go out there and compete with the graduates from St. John's Prep and from Bishop Fenwick and from all the other prep schools that are around, then we need to provide the people who can help them do that. I have been in this city for this long, earning probably less than I could make in another school system, because I fell in love with the people of Peabody. I'm not a Peabody girl, but I felt at home in this city. I felt a connection to the students that were in front of me, the joys, the distresses, the desire to be the best that they could be, and I stayed. And I think we have a faculty that also believes in staying. And I would hope that you would honor that and respect it and give it serious consideration when it comes to balancing these difficult decisions that you have to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Haig. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? The microphone is open.
My name is Jean Marchetti. I am the retired department head of Family and Consumer Science, and I am, of course, upset and concerned that the programs that I taught for 32 years will be soon leaving Peabody High School. And I am a Peabody girl, and I left Bishop Fenwick to attend Peabody High School because I wanted to become a home ec teacher, and Fenwick didn't offer those programs. And my mentor, Grace Fitzpatrick, was a friend of my sister's, and I was fortunate enough to be in her classroom at what was the Higgins, the high school that I attended. And my parents weren't thrilled that I left Fenwick, but they realized that it was probably the best decision of my life for what I wanted to do. And I just can't believe that the Family and Consumer Science programs will be taken away from the general population of Peabody High School. It's part of the fabric of Peabody High. I know that we have the vocational CTE programs, and I actually taught one of those vocational programs, the baking program, for many, many years, and I was very proud to do so. And I was allowed to teach those as a home economics teacher under the umbrella of one of the vocational teachers. When I was asked to teach that class, I said, I can't do that. And my department head said, you most certainly can. And I did it for many, many years. And I was very proud to be in the general, out in the open with my students, proud to show off what they learned in my classes. I also taught the general, foods and nutrition classes, child development, family living. I taught consumer economics my first year teaching at Peabody High School, how to balance a checkbook, how to save money, how to budget. We are the common sense. We are the AP of life, if you will, because many of our students today, unless they have a button to push or a screen to look at, they have difficulty making decisions. And family and consumer science helps students become well-rounded individuals. And again, I respect the CTE programs, but not everybody wants to go that route. And I think we are doing a grave disservice to the general population of Peabody High School to not offer family and consumer science classes to them. The foods classes have been cut from family and consumer science for next year. That classroom, B239, was full every period of every day while I was there. And it just breaks my heart to know that that will no longer be. I also have a little history. The original culinary arts program, the vocational culinary arts program, was started by my mentor, Grace Fitzpatrick. She saw the light. She was a visionary, and she knew that students needed to be trained for the workplace. And she said, we've got to get these kids trained and start, a program in hospitality and restaurant. And she, in conjunction with Dick White, who was the vocational director then, they worked together and they established the program. The original melting pot was on the second floor of Veterans, and it was in a closet that was turned into a nice little restaurant for the students to work in. And the coffee shop was outside the department head's office in a small little area. And that's how it began. And same with the early childhood. She was the startup for that program. We ran Peabody Storytime back in the day, which was like a library story hour, which allowed parents in the community to bring their children for a couple of days a week, few hours, and the students had hands-on experience of what it was like to become a teacher. I don't want to repeat too much more of what Michaeline has told you, but again, it's my passion. I'm just saddened that this will no longer be. This is what makes Peabody High unique. We worked in tandem with the vocational department, and I think we should still be allowed to do that, because not all students will go down the vocational track. I had many students who were, in the top 50 of their class. Freshman year, they all wanted to take Foods 1. They loved it. I had students come back to me and say, after when MCAS started, Mrs. Marchetti, your class helped me. I answered some of the questions correctly because I learned them in your class. So I didn't teach math, but yes, foods, nutrition, those are sciences. We do reach many, many, many students. So I do hope you will consider trying to do your magic and keep those classes alive. I know we still have child development and clothing. However, I would like to see those foods classes come back. I know nutrition is still there. And again, when I started teaching at Peabody High in 1975, there were 7 of us plus a department head. And I watched my department slowly go. We survived the combination of the Kennedy closing and the Higgins, and some teachers were laid off. I was one of them. It happened to be a good time in my life when I was raising my family. I took a few years off, but I came back because I wanted to be back in Peabody and I wanted to continue my career. So again, It makes us a gem around all of the communities that surround us. So I hope you will keep digging and keep scraping and see what you can do to keep these valuable programs alive.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marchetti. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Microphone is open. So the three speakers are people who I incredibly respect. I know personally pretty well. And your words were very powerful. Thank you. We're in a difficult position. I think all of you know that we've spoken on it. We're in a position where the increase to the budget is $6.5 million, where for salaries increases, which are negotiated and earned, and health insurance, we're looking at $4.3 million just between the two of those. You add in 1.2 for the increase in special education, $500,000 in transportation, the increase to our regional vocational school of almost $300,000. It puts us at 6.5. That in and of itself would be a tax increase of almost $300. That doesn't even include the other side of the budget, police, fire, DPW, our libraries, which I've been working with our department heads for the last few months, and again, trying to eliminate the need for reductions as best I can. But it's put a taxing amount on us as a board and certainly our department heads, and it hasn't had an effect on all of you. We pay almost $5 million per year to send almost 300 students to the Essex Vocational School. Previously, before the Essex Vocational School was built, we were sending about 10 per class to Essex Aggie and North Shore Tech. Now we're sending about 75 per class. We're sending all our money to the Essex Tech. I've spoken about this and I will continue to speak on this. Mrs. Dunn was a part of this. We adamantly opposed, her and I, our entry into that because I felt we needed to build a new middle school. We could build programs here and keep our vocational programs here. I believe our system needs more training in vocations. Thankfully, we've made some progress with the Essex Technical School, and we're looking at options to bring our students over to that school. But my hope is that bring them over for next year to have some training over there to take advantage of some of the courses that are offered there. But what's happening is, and I think many of you know this, what's happening is because it's a new shiny school, students are going to that school, and it's a wonderful school. It has many offerings, certainly. But the shiny new school that it is enticing to students. And we are having a number of students, A and B students, that are going to the Essex Tech that were coming to Peabody High School. So of course our numbers are down. We already have established that. But the fact is that students that were typically going to our vocational school when we had it were our plumbers and our electricians and our carpenters and our auto mechanics, auto body, electrical. They are not getting into the Essex Tech School. They're coming to Peabody High School and trying to figure their way. And we don't have enough offerings for them at this point. And I felt, and I've labeled them when I've spoken to our Chamber of Commerce and I've spoken to the Essex Tech itself, I feel there's a number of students that are lost right now trying to figure out their direction. They might not be college bound. They can make a great living with their hands using their skills and talents in some way. But right now, they're not getting into the Essex Tech, and they're figuring out what is available to them at the high school. So I think there's some transition that we need to make. That's why I think it's critical that we build a new high school at Peabody to not only have the shiny new school that they're seeing over at Essex Tech, but to take advantage of what we have, because Mrs. Haig said it is about our teachers and our educators that are in the building, and we have fabulous teachers and educators in the building. And we need to continue to offer those students what they need. I'd like to bring back some vocational programs. I think all of us do. I'm not just speaking as I'm speaking as we, because it's all of us feel this way. But this budget has put us in a real tricky position. in a real difficult spot. I think there's going to be some difficult decisions. We're trying as best we can, mindful of the impact it's having, and we're going to continue to try to push through and minimize the impact as best we can. I think Ms. Murtagh and her team are on the right track. I think we're trying to put together a more full budget and more reflective of what is taking place at our schools, but it's going to be very difficult and challenging for us. I didn't mean to get on that. The Essex Tech is something that really bothers me, and I feel has set our city back in many ways, and is now putting more and more pressure on us. Think if we had $5 million that we weren't sending every year. Now, that does not include the tens and tens of millions of dollars that we had to pay to build that school. If we didn't have that and we could invest in the city of Peabody, and instead of $5 million going to Essex Tech, we could invest $5 million here, we wouldn't even be having these discussions. But the problem is that school opened, we decided to close our vocational school, and now we're in the situation where we're trying to figure out what our next steps are and what we can do for the future. And hopefully building the high school is soon on our agenda. So, sorry, those three comments touched me. I know they touched each of you. It is not fun to be on this side. I can tell all of you that. This is very difficult for me. My daughter will be going to Peabody High School next year. I state that often. I have a daughter that will be in the middle school, and I have a daughter still in elementary school, and I have a young son who will be coming in a couple of years. And I want all the offerings that we can provide for them. And we're all parents of students that are in the Peabody school system. So we're going to keep working. Please, if you have ideas, let us know. We're trying to figure out ways to save money. Those nickels and dimes can save some programs and save some educators. But it is difficult, and we're struggling to find it. So please, if you have ideas and thoughts, let us know. I know we're all working pretty diligently every day. I know Ms. Murtagh and her team are doing the same. We're in this together, and we're trying to figure this out the best we can. But we've had, I feel like, and I said it in my comments last night at the academic awards, I feel like sometimes the decks are stacked against public education in many ways. And I made the comment last night, and I meant it, and I'll say it tonight. Thank God we have people that care, our educators, our administrators, people sitting here in the school committee. We certainly don't do this for the glory, because this is very challenging for all of us. So please open up to us. Let us know if you have thoughts and ideas, things we need to look at. I'm looking at the early retirement as an option to potentially save some money, but I'm not sure of what that could lead to. But we're working very hard and trying the best we can, and we're all in this together. So thank you for those comments. Now we'll go try to transition back to our agenda, superintendent's report. Ms. Murtagh, I'll go to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is for you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The STAR team, we were very excited to see the STAR team here tonight. And I also have the, we call them the tech team here tonight, Mr. Mitchell, Mr. LeBlanc, and Mr. Condon here to discuss Chromebook insurance. Can I invite them up? They're coming to speak about the insurance. Come on up. And I can't say enough about this team. They support the whole district. And I thank them for all their support with all our teachers as well.
Hi, everybody. So we just had a small potential change we're discussing internally regarding the annual Chromebook renewal process for this coming year. For the sake of keeping our description concise, Mark's going to take you through our thought process on that, and I'll hand it over.
So I'm going to start with where we are right now. So when we first went one-to-one at the middle school, we opened a technology fee that the students would pay. Right now they're paying $30 a year annually, as well as there is a family ID system where the parents go online, they get to read all the documentation as far as what is required of the student when they're using the device, when they're using the network at the schools, et cetera. And then there's a digital sign-off for the parent to sign off, agree to the terms, and then pay online, or they can pay cash by coming into one of the main offices. When we first launched the program, we were having some trouble getting people to sign up Number one, people didn't realize it was going to be an annual thing. They kind of thought, it's like $30 and I'm done. I never have to pay again. But it's an annual technology fee that we're requiring. So in order to get past that, we created the early bird option, which is basically we launched the program early, before the end of school, allowing parents to register and pay early if they wish, and the incentive for that would be a $20 instead of $30 fee, as well as the ability for the student to take the Chromebook home over the summer for whether they want to use it as just a personal device or their education, any things that they have to do over the summer. And that helped us get kind of the word out and help people get paid, because once the summer hits, it's really hard. People go into summer mode, and it's really tough to get those registrations. So, and that's worked. So the change that we wanted to look at this year was eliminating the early bird fee of $20 and just having it flat $30 across the board for every student, 6 to 12. They would still have the incentive to take the Chromebook home if they paid before the end of school, or even if they pay during the summer. Sometimes students will come in, in the middle of July. We're here all summer, so they'll come in and pay or register and take their Chromebook home for the summer. The two reasons really for that. Number one is the rise in the warranties on the devices. So we basically, because of tariffs, parts now coming from China are more expensive, and as a result, the manufacturers have raised their warranty costs pretty significantly. So in order to hopefully get maybe half of those students that are paying early to pay $30 instead of $20, that will help subsidize that cost, which is pretty important because that covers any sort of accidental damage, especially at the middle school where the Chromebooks are used by the younger kids. We do see breakages, accidental damage. It happens. So every time like a screen breaks, it's an $80 part. But if we have the warranty on the device, then we're able to repair it ourselves and get that Chromebook back to that kid the same day. The other thing is just to eliminate confusion. I think some parents are struggling with the fact that in 6th and 9th grade, there is no $20 fee. There's just a $30 because it's an initial payment. The $20 is only for renewal. So some people are not sure, well, when am I eligible for early bird? I'm a 9th grade student. I've had a Chromebook. I'm getting a new one, but why can't I renew? So just to eliminate some of that confusion, so we have one link on the website. You go to, you register, you pay for your device, and then you get the Chromebook, whether you do it early or not. So that was our proposal. So usually we would have launched the insurance by now, but we wanted to kind of get some feedback on what we're all thinking here.
Just to piggyback onto what Mark said, the warranties compared to last year have nearly doubled on the devices for the 3-year warranty on them. I would say it was probably about a 40-something% increase on the cost of the warranty. We did the best. We worked with our retailers as best we could to try and get that down a little bit, but we're still nearly double what we've been used to paying on those warranties, really since the inception of the program. So that's kind of it on those. So really nothing would change besides the fact that we're just eliminating that $10 lower incentive for it's generally over the course of about 2 months. We usually launch it in early May and then take it through till the end of the school year. And then anyone that renews after that pays the standard fee of $30, which has never risen since we've started the program. We've always kept the same standard fee.
Well, thank you both for being here and giving us that background information. That was very helpful. Mr. Miko?
Sure. Through the chair to Chris and Mark, just thank you so much for all you do. I think we have the best technology on the North Shore, and it's definitely going to pay dividends to our kids, our teachers down the road. With that said, thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to follow the recommendation of our tech department through the superintendent to make that adjustment, make that fee adjustment from $20 to $30.
Motion by Mr. Miko. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Olympio. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you. Thank you, guys. That was really a very good presentation. However, I'm just wondering, do students turn in their Chromebook at the end of 8th grade and get a new one for 9th grade?
Yes. Yep.
Are they allowed to keep it if they want to continue on with that at high school, or is it a requirement that they do have to turn it in?
Since we've started the program, they've always been collected, and then they've received a brand new device. I mean, you only get so many years out of those. You also only have so many years on the warranties. So if they were to continue with a device through, what would total close to 7 years, there's really no ability to support those after a certain point when it comes to getting parts and things like that.
Okay, and one other question. I know here, I was amazed to see how the students repair the Chromebooks with the START team. Do you have anything like that at the high school level, or what happens when something happens to a high school Chromebook?
So we have a full-time technician, Brian's back there hiding. So we're working on introducing a similar program at the high school. It's still in the early stages as far as like a START program and student help desk. There is a form of a student help desk program. So Brian, over the course of the day, has 1 to 2 students at a time, certain periods, and he works with them, teaching them some of the similar things that they would learn up here in this building. So we do have students that can repair devices up there when they're available. Otherwise, it's just handled in-house by whichever tech team member is at that building at the time.
Okay, thank you.
I will say two of the reasons that we don't have that. Number one, it's a scheduling issue. A lot of it's just a very different schedule. You don't have that the academic support time at the high school, and you don't have what do they call it? The cluster time and times where kids can come down here and get that kind of assistance. Also, we lose a lot of the START kids to Essex Tech. I think last year, almost the whole team, actually, we lost to Essex Tech. So you're kind of starting at square one at the beginning of 9th grade.
I would say our goal ultimately is to have something similar up at that building so we can, hopefully draw those students to the high school to continue that program.
I know, because it is a good program. The kids really enjoy it, and they're learning very useful skills. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you both. Roll call?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. In your packet, you have the monthly student attendance report. You also have the monthly Bay State textiles report, and you have the schedule for our high school graduation, which is May 31st at 5 o'clock at Peabody Veterans Memorial High School, and also all of the Higgins Middle School and elementary moving on ceremonies in your packet. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to written communications. And we have a letter from the Italian community of Greater Lynn School scholarship for $1,000. Communication from the city clerk, Tim Spanos, regarding the city charter review, and then a thank you letter from the Peabody Federation of Teachers regarding the First Book initiative. All right. Ms. Carpenter.
Thank you. I'm not sure who this question is to. The charter review that was included, is that information only, or are they looking for input?
That is a new document that I've just received, so I'm calling Mr. Spanos to get some more information for you. That's a new document I have not seen yet.
Okay.
It's in our packet, obviously, but it's the first time I've ever seen it on my desk.
Yeah, me too.
So I'll bring more information forth to you, but we wanted you to make sure it's in the packet so you knew. And I will ask if you need to, if anything needs to be done moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Actually,
Mrs. Dunn.
rather than asking if we need to do anything, could you please ask them how we can speak on that issue?
Most certainly will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Better questions.
Yes. What day would they like to see us, and at what time?
All right, we'll move on to subcommittee reports. Education. Ms.
Nothing to
Kaufman.
report at this time.
Thank you. Finance. Ms.
Nothing to
Carpenter.
report.
Thank you. School safety.
Nothing new to report.
Athletics and wellness.
Nothing to report.
Quality and standards.
Nothing to report.
All right, liaison to parent and student advisory boards.
The Parent Advisory Board is scheduled for a meeting May 20th. However, I think I'm going to find out with our budget hearings that may need to be put off, so I'm not going to schedule it yet until I confirm that. If that's the case, I'll just have a meeting early in June for the Parent Advisory Board. We did, however, have a very good meeting at the end of April, and it was a presentation by the members of the Student Health Center at the high school. We had the director, Carol Champagny, and we had one of the student members of the Youth Advisory Council, Alyssa Torres. And the information they gave us was really very, very helpful to find out, what the program is like, what they want to do, some of the things that they are able to do at the high school. The involvement of the students up there is really a very big part of the success of that program. The Youth Advisory Council, as you know, we've heard about them presenting at the State House and lobbying, and I think it's two, maybe three of their members were chosen to go to the national conference and present there on what the PVMHS health clinic does for the school. It's a really incredible, it's an incredible program that we're benefiting from at this school. It needs more involvement and referrals to the program. I think that going forward with next year, one of the things that we need to do is make sure that that program is highlighted to parents and their children so that they know what's available, what services are provided. We just heard from our, some of our youngest students about the need for good mental health. That's a huge piece of that clinic, and it's a very necessary piece at the high school. And I think that it's a hidden treasure, and we need to make sure people know about it. After hearing some of the things that have gone on up there, we really do need to make sure that that it's valued, that it's encouraged, and that it is able to maintain its place at the school. So I will get back to you about the next Parent Advisory Board meeting, when it is and what we will do. Usually the last meeting of the year is a wrap-up and perhaps a presentation or, a decision on some of the upcoming issues that we'll discuss next year.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn.
Mr. Olympia.
Oh, Mr. Olympia, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, through the chair, yeah, Ms. Dunn, I was at that meeting that we both attended. I was really moved by, the speakers, and to say that health clinic maybe have saved a life or two is not overstated.
Right.
It's really made a dramatic impact on some students, and it's really kept them in school. And like I said, to say that it might have saved a life or two is not overstating, I feel. So,
I agree.
So that's really something that we have to support going forward, and it's just, they do great work at that health clinic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olympia. Well, actually, just to echo the point, I completely agree. As you said, hidden gem. I mean, there's no better way to describe what goes on up there. I think all of us in various settings have heard some of the stories from the students who attend there and how impactful and important the health center is to them, their lives, and their just day-to-day success. As people say, everyone's battling something, and often you don't know what that person is battling. And this is a location where these kids can go and be free to have those conversations with trained individuals who are there to support them and make them feel comfortable and at home. And they should be encouraged and supported to go there anytime when anyone asks. So thank you for that, Mrs. Dunn, and I'll just continue if we can. Did you have something to add, or can I?
Yes, I have one more thing. One thing that I left off my report is I got some information about school choice, and it was a wonderful document, and I wanted to share it with you. It's just frequently asked questions and answers to some very important questions that we had, talking about siblings, and you do have to do a yes vote for siblings. So we are yes, and I am taking your guidance on school choice. So thank you. But I want you to have, this was a good document.
Thank you. Motion to receive.
Second.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Building and Ground Subcommittee?
Nothing to report at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Meeker. Special Education Parent Advisory Board.
I'll most likely be scheduling a meeting in early June after we're done with our budget meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. And there is nothing new to report to the Liaison and City Council Legislative Delegation. New business?
Actually,
Mrs. Dunn.
I would like to ask if we could schedule a meeting with our legislative delegation.
Thank you. We'll refer that to the subcommittee. Might have a quick turnaround on that, Mrs. Dunn. All right, any new business? All right, we'll hold that, and then I think we'll recess with the intent to return back. Oh, sorry, Mr. Hoffman.
I think it's a motion to adjourn the regular school committee meeting and resume the budget meeting.
All right, so, all right, fair enough. Okay.
And recess for 2 minutes?
Sure, yes.
Okay, look to vote to return to our school budget meeting that we had recessed to go to the regular scheduled meeting. All in favor of reconvening to discuss the budget? That's a vote.
So I think prior to our school committee meeting, we got through the questions that you had for me from last night, and now we're moving on to List A and List B.
Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Superintendent Murtagh, and everyone who's still here at 8:28. It's been a long day for everybody. I'd like to make a motion to, I'm just trying to find it. Oh, wait, it's on this page. To remove from List B consideration for the reduction of reading specialists.
Second.
Further motion by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. Any comments? Roll call vote?
Yes.
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 Good. Again, I appreciate that, and I think it's a terrific move, but again, that is approximately $700,000 that now has to be found in this budget. Mr. Hockman?
I'd like to make a motion to direct the chairman and the superintendent to negotiate with the various bargaining units for a one-day furlough.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Mr. Hockman. Interesting. Seconded by Mr. Amico. On the motion, I'll go to Mr. Amico, then Mrs. Dunn.
Sure, through the chair, and I'll discuss my my experience in a furlough. I was pink slipped in 2002. When I was luckily brought back very shortly, and I always vowed that if I was ever in a position where I could help a teacher, a younger teacher, or someone who had less experience, who I thought was going to be cut, I would. And I think I made good on that promise in 2009, I believe about 10 years ago. We were faced with a similar situation in Revere, and I was one of the teachers, along with the negotiating committee, that moved forward and took 2 furlough days for a big savings to the district. We were able to keep those teachers, many of which, actually one of which was my next door neighbor at the time and is still teaching in that district. It hurt to give back that money for those 2 days right there and then. I wasn't earning as much as I, could be earning and wanted to be earning, obviously, but it was a sacrifice. And many of those teachers that we saved that year are still teaching in that district today. I'm not telling anyone to do that. I just want to share my experience on what I did. So there are going to be a lot of decisions to be made, And I just want to let people know that I've been there. I know how difficult it is, but I also know the value of sacrifice for a colleague. But I'll support that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Mrs. Dunn?
Just a question, I don't know, Mr. LaFleur, if you would happen to have even an estimate on what that would be, but
For one day,
one day.
$278,952.36.
Okay, thank you.
On the motion, Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that's not an easy motion for me to make. It's not an easy motion for any of us to consider. The mayor has mentioned this and stated this eloquently many times. We're in a position now where we're facing decisions that none of us want to make. No one in this room wants to have us make, I don't think. And in an effort to maintain programs and maintain staff without looking at certain things like reading specialists, we have to make some tough decisions. And I don't want anyone to go without a day's pay, but if it's what would save other positions, we need to consider it. As Mr. Amico has said, everything's on the table. I will tell you that I'm going to follow up this motion with a motion for the administration to take a one-day furlough as well. It's not just the staff that I'm looking to place this burden on, it's the entire school district.
Just to clarify, the administration is included in that number?
Oh, well, then I'll amend my motion to include the administration and the various bargaining units.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Hockman, as a matter of logistics, your motion specified Ms. Murtagh and the mayor. Did you want them to negotiate, or did you want the negotiating team to go in, or what is the logistics on that?
My apologies. And
No, if you want them to do it.
No. I mean, I think it's appropriate for the finance subcommittee as well to participate in that conversation. And I didn't mean any...
I didn't take it anyway.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out what my job is next.
Okay. Any other comments or thoughts on this issue, Mr. Amico?
Sure, through the chair to Mr. Hockman. And this point of clarification, this is just to set up a meeting. This isn't any guarantees that anything will happen, or this is just to open up discussions on a possibility of something like this happening. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Olympio, then Mr. Notis.
Yeah, through the chair. And just, one of the reasons why I was in favor of this motion really is after talking with a bunch of people within the district, the unintended consequences it might have on special education and the IEPs and the strain that it could put on some of the special education students. It's something that really frightens me, quite frankly. And that was one of the reasons why I was in support of that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Mr. Arnottis?
Thank you. Just very quick, I will be supporting this motion. As Mr. Miko said, it's just opening the conversation. We're all trying to get creative here and think of as many ways as possible to make this less painful for everyone. And as everyone has said, I think over the course of this process, we're in this together, and all of us are trying to find the best way to do this. So I think opening that conversation is not an unreasonable thing to look at.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Any other thoughts or questions on List A? Mr. Hockman?
Thank you. Through you to Ms. Murtagh, Superintendent Murtagh, excuse me. How many students do we currently have enrolled in the PANS program, if you know?
Currently, right now, I believe it's 10.
Can I make a motion to follow the recommendation of the superintendent with a reduction of one PANS teacher?
Second.
Further motion by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mr. Amico. On the motion, Mr. Arnottis?
Thank you. Through you to the superintendent, could we get some more information on the impact of this cuts and where it would go? I don't feel comfortable taking this on tonight. I'd like to hold off. I think we need to have some further conversation on that and get some more information. I'm not ready to do that one tonight.
I withdraw the motion.
Thank you.
Mrs. Dunn?
I also have questions. Could we submit questions now regarding the PANS program? I know that the enrollment changes very, very often, and I don't know if we can get the numbers of, just like the attendance report, we should be able to figure out how many students go to that program and are being serviced. I also know that I heard that at the end of the year, students are going there for credit recovery, and I would like to look at that. It is a piece of the attendance policy, so of course this is going to overlap out of the budget decisions, but I really do think it's a very good idea to find out exactly what that program is doing and what it's covering and how many students would be impacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amico.
Thank you. Through the chair of the committee, I'd like to make a motion to move the ESL teachers to the Title I grant for a savings of $191,053.38.
Second.
Okay, further motion by Mr. Amico, seconded by Mr. Arnottis. On the motion, Mrs. Dunn?
Yes. Could you explain what the impact would be on the Title I schools? And also, when that first was presented, we were told there may be a different way of doing Title I for the district, if you have any new information on that.
We just started the Title I conversation about this potential transfer and its impact. We should have it for you by tomorrow. And it will remove some positions out of the Title I funding streams and put this ESL team into it.
So from here, the way it would impact is that these 3 positions would be in Title I schools. So they would not be losing out on that because it's a compliance thing as well. So that's where these 3 positions would be in Title I schools.
Okay. How many how many ELL teachers do we have in the district altogether?
16.
Altogether?
16.
Yep, 16 is right.
16? All right, and these are for elementary?
No, 4 at the high school, 3 at the middle school, and the rest are elementary, and they share some buildings, they split some schedules across buildings.
Oh, I meant, are these 3 ELL teachers for elementary level?
They'd be all elementary.
Elementary.
All our Title I schools are the elementary schools.
Right, okay. And there's no hope of making the district a Title I district?
We're Title I school-wide in the 5 schools, but our need is growing, but the money that we're getting for funding is not growing. So every year we're trying. But one awesome thing that I can talk about is that when I first started, we had 3 ELL teachers in the district. We now have 16.
Very good.
So that's a plus.
Thank you.
Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you. I've struggled with this one, only because of the services that are going to be reduced as a result of this motion. However, I think coupled with the committee's decision to maintain the reading specialists, I'm a little more comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable. I'm a little more comfortable. And I know the mayor, in last year's budget, we had a reduction in some second-tier supports, and he and I had a public conversation about if we need to revisit something. we may need to revisit this as the school year progresses in 2019, 2020. This is a vulnerable population that needs a little more assistance. So, I'm confident that the administration and the committee would revisit this should we need to 2019, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Amico.
Thank you, through the chair to Mr. Hockman. I appreciate that, and I agree. None of these are comfortable, and none of the ones that we're about to talk about tonight and tomorrow are going to be comfortable. They're going to be very difficult, but unfortunately, they're going to have to get done. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, again, I respect the decisions, but when we look at what money we have available as a city, and, you know, I know these are difficult, we're going to keep saying that, but we've cut $118,000 today. That brings us to 1.3 million and change. We still have 2.1 million plus to cut from this budget. We have to start making decisions. We have to start making, you know, I know we're seeking additional information and questions and things, but you know, we have to start taking on some of these hard questions. I don't see any way around it. I have to report to the city budget and to the city council very shortly. We have to meet the requirements for public hearings and then to present to the city council. We're running up against that time. Again, my responsibility is to look at the entire budget citywide. I hear from the families of people on fixed incomes. I hear from the families who have limited budgets. A tax increase seriously harms those families that are a large component of this city. We owe it to everybody that we have to really look at this budget. And there will not be just school cuts. There will be cuts in every department citywide. And I have to prepare those and present those to the city councils. But, you know, I'm very happy that we kept the reading specialists. They provide a valuable function. But again, that creates a void of, what's the number, $650,000 that we have to find within this budget to account for that. So, again, I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to thoughts, but decisions have to be made for us to meet our requirements to present to the city council in June.
We have a motion on the floor. We're ready to vote.
Any comments on that motion?
Could you read the motion again?
Moving ELL to Title I. The 3 ELL teachers to Title I grant.
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Roll call vote?
Yes.
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 Mr. Olympio?
I'd like to make a motion to follow the recommendation of the superintendent to cut the library paraprofessionals.
Second.
Further motion by Mr. Olympio, seconded by Mr. Amico. Any comments, Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering why the paraprofessional for the high school was removed from that, that listing of all the proposed cuts on library paraprofessionals.
That one was kept on. We have not put that on at list A or list B yet. It just is not there yet.
Okay. It was originally.
On the very first one.
Very first one.
It was an error. That was an error at first.
I hate to do it, but I would like to ask for that to be reestablished in that list of all the people who are being looked at as a library paraprofessional. That's the only other library paraprofessional in the entire district. first sheet, I think the total,
23,000, I
right,
think.
is 23, and
It was 20, I looked at it this afternoon, Mrs. Dunn, I think it was 23,000 and change.
$23,095.41.
Saw it this afternoon.
The total of the 9 would be 61? $61,164.14.
okay.
I'm sorry,
Want me
Ms.
to
Dunn.
look into that, Mrs. Dunn, or do you want it put on?
I would like that put in, if it could be an amendment to the motion,
Yeah.
or I'll make a second motion after, whichever way is easier for everyone.
To include
Include in that recommended cut the paraprofessional at the high school library as well.
Okay. Mr. Hockman?
Just so I'm clear on the motion, this isn't the librarian at the high school, the library?
No, it's the
No, okay,
paraprofessional.
thank you.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Just for some more clarification, the library paras that are in the elementary,
Yes,
they only work 2 or 3 days right now, right?
12 hours a week.
12 hours a week.
So it's different in every school. They get to choose how they want to do that, and they make the schedule with their principals.
Okay, so they're at 12 hours a week. And then the other one that's included at the high school is not 12 hours a week?
No, it's full-time.
Yeah, full-time. So this would completely close the elementary libraries, correct?
Correct.
I think in the past, we had done this before, gone through this. We ended up opening up the libraries with volunteers.
Correct.
Parents had gone in and volunteered, which I appreciated. It was very difficult. Those times were extremely difficult. I almost want to say worse than now. But when we finally did fund them again, what we found was we lost a lot of books. It was a really big mess. Everything was not as it should be. You know, I know we're making difficult decisions, but this is one where, you know, history is repeating itself and I should learn my lesson the first time. So I won't be supporting this.
Mrs. Dunn?
I know what Mrs. Carpenter's referring to, and we were blessed with the volunteers who came in, but because of the way that we had basically treated the elementary school libraries, I don't remember how long we went without the paraprofessionals, but I do know it took a few years to get back to normal, as far as just repairing books, trying to reassemble the collection. There were a lot of things that were very difficult. Making these cuts right now is just horrible, because reading is such an important piece of education, and the joy children have going into the libraries is really something very special, and they do learn a lot. I will be voting in favor of this, even though it kills me to do that, but my hope is that we can restore staff next year to those libraries, because it is very, very important. We have no paraprofessional here in this library. That's the only reason why I brought forward the high school paraprofessional, because, again, if we're going to make those types of cuts and understand what will happen over the next year, we do have to be prepared to correct that after this year's budget. It's not easy, but moving through and even, you know, we'll be having a discussion in a few minutes, I'm sure, about the librarian here. I just think that it's an awful thing that we have to do. We have done it before, It will end up costing us in the long run, but I'm looking at that as a one-year stopgap type of a vote.
Okay, any other thoughts? So we have a motion. So Mrs. Dunn, did you make, was Mr. Hockman? Mrs. Dunn made the motion, so I'm just a little confused. We're adding on one that's not listed here?
It was originally listed, and now it's been zeroed out, but it was the library paraprofessional at PVMHS, and it was about $23,000.
Yep, I have the exact number if you want it. So,
If we could do that in two separate motions, because it would be the elementary and then the high school. Thank you.
Okay. So the original motion should stand. That was for the elementary paraprofessionals.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 Yes. And then I would like to make a motion that the library paraprofessional at PVMHS be cut from the budget.
Second.
What's the, go ahead.
22,530 is the actual cost of the para at the high school library.
Is that a benefited?
yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what was that follow-up question?
If that's a benefited position. Did you make that motion, Mrs. Dunn? Was there a second?
Yes.
Seconded by Mr. Arnottis. On that motion, Mrs. Carpenter?
That would still keep the high school library open,
Yes.
full-time?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could we go to accountable unit 15? In regard to the contractual services for the performing arts. Yeah, so there are, what are the 2, 4, 6, 8 items under the contractual services for repairs. And we are looking at everything, and I'm just wondering if we can forego some of this.
What number are you on?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm on the backup page. What's the line?
Just tell me the first thing that you have on there, what it says.
It would be, if we're on the front page or cover sheet of this unit,
Yes.
it would be the second line from the bottom, above dues and fees.
Yep, 50, yep, 150, 15.
And there's backup material, as with everything else in the budget. And it identifies some instrument repairs and clinicians and a cappella arranging and some other things. I'm just wondering if there's any component of this that we could forego for a year, or, again, not that anybody wants to.
I would have to ask Mr. Simmons. I don't have an answer for you, but
Sure.
I could definitely ask for you. But how much are you looking? Are you looking for anything? Or a
I don't know what,
let me find out.
yeah, if we can get some information. And as I'm going through my budget book, if we can jump to accountable unit 16, and I apologize that I didn't bring this up when Mr. Boo was here, but maybe Mr. Farrell or someone can provide the information. There's a stipend for both the athletic director and the athletic director's clerk, each in the amount of $5,500 in addition to their salaries. Can we get some information as to what these stipends are for?
I will get that information for you as well. I don't have 16 right here.
No?
Do you have another one?
I can move on if we're going to.
Yeah. All right.
They each get a stipend.
Right. I will look into that for you.
Thank you. And in fairness to you and the administration, I'm bringing these up for the first time, so
Thank you.
I'm not surprised that that information is available. Moving to accountable unit 17. We have I guess it would be line 17,008. We have, which is the paraprofessionals at the integrated preschool. We have 17 paraprofessionals at the integrated preschool. Is there any opportunity to have any reduction there?
I have looked at that very, very closely, but the needs of our students, it calls for that and per their IEP.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for looking closely at that.
Thank you.
Staying within that accountable unit, there's a vacancy for a clerical position that I think is presently being filled by a long-term sub.
Correct.
Is there any opportunity to consider that as one of the clerical reductions that you were contemplating?
I cannot reduce it full. It would have to be a 19.5. There's no, in that office, it's very, very busy. And the best that I can do in speaking with the Director of Special Education is 19.5.
Is that?
It's, right now, it's currently being filled by a long-term sub, but it's a 30-hour position.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, through you to Superintendent Murtagh, is that one of the clerical positions that you were contemplating to be reduced to 19.5 in?
No.
No, that's something different. While we're staying in that same accountable unit, I'm sorry, I'm on the
Sorry.
back pages with the detail, not in the front page. I don't know what line it is. But there's the paraprofessional for the deaf and hard of hearing program. There's one vacancy there as well. Is that,
I'm sorry. That is being filled right now. It has to be filled.
and we have an obligation to fill that?
We absolutely do. Thank you. suggestion that we had, and I think it was brought up the other night, that I just want to bring to your attention as we're off our A and B list, is that you asked me to take a look into parking passes
Yes.
at the high school.
Yes.
I noticed. So we were thinking $100 per student.
And that would get what? What do we think?
Well, we're thinking between 400 to 500 students take.
So we're talking 40 to 50 grand right there. Well, that's significant. I'll make the motion right now.
I don't have the total number, I'm trying to find out, but between 400 and, we have a lot of juniors and seniors, so.
I'll yield for now.
Through the chair to Ms. Murtagh, do we have a record of all the students that actually drive onto the property? Do we know, because there's no parking pass right now, do we know who actually is driving onto our property?
So, I don't have it, that's what I'm trying to find out, is a total number. A lot of our students drive, so
I guess, excuse me, so if we don't have parking passes, we really technically don't know who's driving onto the property because we don't have decals or stickers, permit stickers.
Point of information.
We have stickers?
They get a parking permit
Oh, they
pass,
do?
and it
Oh,
goes
they
on
do.
the side of
It's-
their window.
But
So
they
it's
don't have
not
to pay
paid,
for
though.
it.
They don't pay for it, but if they don't get one, they get a $10 ticket.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to be clear on that.
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
they had it, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
do
they have to
details.
register,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
We do.
Thank you.
But they do not pay for it.
No.
They don't have a
They
fee
pay
for
if they
it.
don't do it.
Correct.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to make sure there was at least something that was
Yep, there's a
documented
record
that
of
we knew.
every
Okay.
student that parks.
Sure.
Well, if they don't, like I said, they get.
Okay, thank you.
sorry.
That's okay.
Second.
Thank you.
You all set, Mr. Miko?
Yes, oh, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Dunn, then Mrs. Dunn, I'll go to you.
Okay. I understand about the need to vote, but I think we should look into a requirement. Years ago, when we were putting on a parking fee, it needed to be, any fee needed to be related to a service being provided. And at that time, it was because students' cars were being broken into, and the fee was going to pay for it was paying for one of the security monitors at the high school. They went out and they monitored the parking area. So just to make sure that that would be an allowable fee, if you could just check into that. I don't know if it was a requirement, a legal requirement, or if it was policy.
Okay, I'll check into that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Arnottis.
Thank you. So through to you, the superintendent. Could we make the motion, and then if that is something we need to go back and look at, then we can? But if it's not a policy and we are able to implement that and use that money towards our budget?
And I'd like to get you an accurate number, so you'd have an accurate total that you can vote on.
Yeah, okay.
So whether it's 300, 400, I'm thinking it's between 400 and 500
Yeah,
students. I mean,
I'm sure it's up there.
I was out there counting the rows.
Yeah.
So, on all sides. So, I will get you that number for tomorrow night.
Okay.
That won't be a problem.
All right, we can wait then.
I agree with Mr. Arnottis. I'd like to take a roll call on this, and if we need to recall it and reconsider it for a legal reason, we can, regardless of whether it's going to be 350 kids or 500 cars. I mean, I don't think that's going to change the vote.
Okay.
Right. And on the numbers, you were only counting the student parking lot, right, not the teacher's parking lot?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So I will make a motion then to implement a $100 parking fee for students parking at the high school.
Second.
You heard the motion by Mr. Arnottis, seconded by Mr. Hockman. On the motion, Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I won't be in favor of this. That, it's hard enough for some of the kids to get to school as it is, pay bus fees, and then you have a kid who gets a car, gets his license. It's $3,000 for insurance, registration. Now, just to go to school, they have to pay to park. It's not something I'm going to entertain. I understand the premise of it. I understand the situation that we're in. But now we're asking the kids to come up with You're asking the kids to come up with $100. I hope you know that. It's not definitely just the parents. So I will not be in favor of it. I understand where it's coming from, but they're going to school. It's another reason to not.
Any further comments? Roll call vote?
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes. All right, so should we plan for 40,000? If you're thinking 400?
Yeah, they have the definite number tomorrow night.
Okay, what are you gonna look at,
The stickers.
the stickers and determine the stickers? Okay. Mr. Hockman?
I have a couple of small items, but everything counts. Accountable unit 22. I'm not even sure what lines these are in, but in the backup material, there's MASC annual dues of $6,000. There's $1,600 for retirement service awards and $1,085 for photo associates. We haven't had a school committee picture taken in I don't know how many cycles. So I think we can get rid of that unless there's something that the staff, it's under the school committee line, so I don't think it's,
School committee photo.
it's our photo, so that's an easy one, I think. If the retirement service awards are for school committee, is that for us or for staff?
No, that's for the volunteers, our volunteers that volunteer in our schools. We have that little reception.
And the MASC membership, which also has $6,000, and then there's the fall meeting at $750, $250 for Day on the Hill.
The cost cap one we did.
Which is $7,000. I know we do get some benefits from being members of MASC, and probably Ms. Dunn can speak to this more than anybody else here. I'm just trying to uncover every stone.
I will give you a quick overview. The benefit of being in MASC is that we can receive the required training, which by law we have to take. And by the way, it's being offered this Saturday at the Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School, and everybody should come and brush up on their requirements. The cost of the dues covers the law book we receive every year, the Mass General laws. It covers the ability of the MASC staff to come in and give us the targeted trainings we've requested. It, oh my goodness, it helps to provide the educational materials that we do receive regarding policy, legislation. It's actually amazing to see what goes on behind the scenes, what the dues does purchase. And I can tell you that if we did not stay as a member of MASC, we'd be only one out of the entire state of Massachusetts, other than one school district which had stepped out and they're back in. We would be the only community in Massachusetts not being a member of MASC. The benefits are very good. I'm being very careful with what I say because as a member of that board of directors, I honestly would not be able to vote on that. I would need to recuse myself from that vote. But just for informational purposes, I did want to let you know that the services they do provide are very good. The cost in this budget of the $750 for the annual fall meeting and the meeting, at the legislators at this Day on the Hill, those are put in there, and I can tell at the cost of that, that's so that the members of the board can attend. And I don't know, the MASC cost cap, that $100 charge, I believe that is for our clerical staff to receive training. MASC also has an arm that trains our secretaries, so the superintendent's secretaries receive training, and they receive a lot of different material that help them with the job that they do as relates to school committee business. And the school year events, that's definitely something I have no idea what that's for.
I believe we cut that last night. I think general other, we cut that last night.
And the cost cap.
Yep. That was on the sheet from last night, the 100, well, now it's up to 141,000. That was the general other and the MASC cap is off. Those two we voted last night.
Oh, that's already been cut.
Yeah, but not the ones above.
Can we at least pick up photo associates at $1,085?
You get a refund?
Well, no, well, maybe, yeah, look,
That was last night, too.
hire an attorney for $4,000 to pick it up.
That was one for admin, one for...
Let it go.
School committee. Okay.
Well, they were two separate ones intentionally.
Yeah, so this is the school.
One's to take your picture.
You don't have it. So last night, there was one on there, and that was to take my picture. Nobody wants to see my picture, so we, that one last night. Tonight would be the school committee one that you'd be voting.
Yeah. We just don't get it anyway, so.
Yeah, get rid of it.
Next year.
Next year.
I can do it for free.
Yeah.
Maybe a selfie.
So,
I'll put it on Facebook.
move to reduce the line item for the school committee photograph.
Second.
Voting in favor of it, where is it?
It's in the accountable unit 22. I don't see it in, I don't know what line it's under. Maybe Mr. LaFleur can help with that.
Supplies administration.
I'm sorry?
Supplies administration.
Bev, it's on the same page that you saw the annual MASC at the bottom.
Yep. Oh, there it is, okay, photo associates, yeah. You can do a selfie on the phone.
Okay, you've heard the motion by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. How much is total is that?
$1,085.
Yeah. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Ms. Martek?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me, Superintendent Martek, can you, on list B that we received last night, there's a assistant principal reduction that you're considering. Can you flesh that out a little bit more?
There shouldn't be, I don't, did you get a wrong list?
I hope I did.
Yeah. No, on list B is only
Specialists and paraprofessionals.
specialist and paraprofessionals.
So maybe may I approach you on her?
I knew we'd go there.
You get the same list?
That's an old one.
Yeah, but this has the wrong, this is wrong.
So,
That's wrong. You didn't get this one? This is the only one. I don't know why you got that one. Thank you. So the only thing you should have on list B is reading specialist and kindergarten paraprofessionals.
Oh,
Mrs. Dunn?
I'm sorry, are we moving to a different unit? Before we do, I wanted to bring something up.
No, please, go ahead.
Okay, can you please look on the it would be accountable unit 22. And just check at the back, under supplies for administration, where we cut the school committee photo. That's all duplicated under school committee supplies as well. So there are some variances, but Photo Associates is listed again if you flip to the very last page of the budget. I'm sorry, the very last page of next page. Accountable unit, what is it, 22?
22.
That was cut last night on that part of that 141, so they're both gone now. There were intentionally two there.
Oh,
It was
okay.
141 right now.
Okay,
Yes, that's part of the 140.
thank you.
Anything else there, Mrs. Dunn?
No, it was just I wanted to catch it before we went to another unit.
Thank you.
Mr. Amico?
Thank you. Through the chair of the committee. A little earlier, we, as a committee, unanimously, and I think we did the right thing by voting off the reading specialists and for consideration to keep them in. But I think it's time that we have to look at some bigger items here. And unfortunately, when we did that, we're pinning one big item against another. We can't have both. We can't save reading specialists and the others on this list. So I'm going to make a motion, and again, this isn't something I want to do. This is something we have to do. I'm going to make a motion to remove the foreign language teacher at the high school.
Second.
Heard the motion by Mr. Amico.
I'm sorry, is it
The middle school.
It's at the middle school, excuse me, middle school.
You heard the motion by Mr. Amico, seconded by Mr. Olympio. On the motion, Mr. Arnottis?
Yeah, this is one of the ones that I have struggled with, because you are reducing a language. So, Ms. Mortag, could you walk us through what the new groundwork will be to recover from this?
Yes, and speaking with Mr. Busey, he explained the whole situation, and currently students either have the choice of Italian, well, not a choice, it's an exploratory, so they get exposure to it. So it's Italian, Spanish, and French. So instead of having five, because there's 5 teachers, instead of having the 5 rotation in exploratory for 5 weeks, they'll have it in 4 due to our new scheduling. So it would be a rotation of 4.
For different languages?
Spanish and Italian, if you reduce the French.
So there is no opportunity to keep the subject of French as a whole?
This is the one he said that he could give us up for in his rotation.
All
I mean, they thought long and hard about what they could do within their schools. It's like all the principals have been rock stars. It's so hard for them.
Okay, I'll yield for now to anyone else if they have comments.
Any other comments, Mrs. Dunn?
I won't be supporting that cut. I'm not going to bring up old history, but I will not support that. We've seen the results of this at the high school level with a previous cut, and I won't cut that language.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. So it's an exploratory
Correct.
in 6th grade?
6, 7, 8.
6, 7, 8, they try one each.
No, they can go around and they
Go
get
around.
placed in this, yeah. So obviously, the progression of learning would happen, if you take
Yeah.
a little Spanish in 6th grade.
And then you go to the next one and the next one, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier on in this budget process, I think we voted on one high school teacher.
Correct.
And also earlier on in this process, I think the administration identified 5 total high school teachers and the departments that they'd be coming from. The one that I believe, or at least my notes show, the one that we voted on was in the English department? Is that?
We said we have English, math, social studies, community high school, and FC, the family consumer science.
Okay. And the one that we voted on, was it?
I don't think we chose a subject.
Okay, so there are 4 remaining that you've identified.
Correct.
So I'm going to make a motion to state specifically, and actually I'd move to reconsider the prior vote to identify it as the English teacher, if I need to, unless you're hearing me.
The one that you,
Already voted on.
so we'll put that as English.
Yeah, and then I'm going to make a motion to follow the recommendation of the superintendent with regard to the reduction of 1 social studies teacher, 1 math teacher, and 1 community high school teacher.
Second.
I heard the motion by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mr. Amico. On the motion, Mr. Arnottis?
Just a point of clarification, is this the PVMHS 4 category lines of teachers that we're looking at right now? On list A of the recommended cuts, is that what we're talking about?
The original list.
The
that I
original
think
list.
We got on April 30th, yes.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, still on list
I
A.
did leave one out.
I'm sorry, what?
Still on list A.
Yeah.
And I think, if I still have the floor, I know Ms. Dunn had some concerns about the 5th teacher identified, and I'm, out of respect to her, going to hold on that until some more information might be fleshed out in terms of where numbers look and things like that.
On the family consumer science, is that what you're?
I'm holding on that.
On the motion, Mr. Amico?
Actually, I'll yield.
Mrs. Dunn?
Could you please check the community school cut, because that is a standalone day program under special education, and I do believe there are certain requirements as far as staffing to student ratio. It may impact on that cut.
I did speak to Ms. Scrooby, and I believe, I know we can do that. We have the 4 core. And they can teach 1 out, too.
All right, so the motion, again, is math, social studies, and community high school.
Yes, sir.
It's been seconded. Any further comments? Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 No. And may I ask for additional information? It's not truly pertinent to the vote, but could you please give us an updated figure with that cut of what the actual staffing will be in each of those departments in this book?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I do have the information for the family consumer science. We gathered that today. I think that's the question that you had for us. We gathered that information. Dr. Lord did a lot of work up there at the high school today with creating the schedule for that, so he can give you some information on that right now.
Okay.
All right, so specifically, the FCS classes, there are 4 sections, 2 of a clothing course and 2 of an interior design course that will be picked up by the department head for art. So those courses aren't going away. The kids are taking them, they're just being taught by a different teacher.
We cut the department head for art.
Wait, well, okay, so what
There
I'm
we
saying
go.
is, they would be, the classes aren't going away, they're being taught by different people. There are 7 sections of international foods being taught by culinary teachers. Again, courses aren't going away, they're being taught by a different person. And the childhood development classes are also being taught by a vocational teacher, and they're not going away. The kids are still getting to take those classes, they're being taught by a different teacher.
Okay.
So the courses aren't going away for the kids. They're still being able to take the classes, but a different teacher's teaching them.
If I may, I have a question. On the cooking classes, how are they being covered by the culinary arts teacher?
In terms of their schedule,
My understanding is they were cut from the choices that students could make for their classes.
no, they, sure, so, get these up here. All right, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 international foods classes. 1, 2, 3, 4 are being taught by one culinary teacher and another 4 by a different culinary vocational teacher. There were around 99 requests for that class, so the students will land in those sections when we schedule them. There's 2 interior designs that I already shared with you. Those are being taught by another teacher. And the clothing design is being taught by another teacher in their schedule. So the courses aren't going away. The kids will get into those. They'll just be taught by a different person.
Okay. Now, just a follow-up question on this. When the clothing and design classes and equipment was funded through a Perkins grant, what happens now if it's not being taught by a certified vocational teacher?
That's a question I'll ask Mrs. Ferry.
And on our Perkins funding, if we could get that figure for the next
I have
meeting,
that.
I'd like to see that. Because the classes that have been offered, let me see if I can say it right. We're cutting teachers, but we're keeping programs, and yet the teachers we're keeping already have full schedules, so I don't understand how it will work. Point one, I'm concerned about it because I know that many of the students who take those classes are taking them in the hopes of eventually getting into a culinary program, or to at least be able to take a hands-on class. And it has kept many students in school. The other concern that I have, again, is knowing that we are trying to keep and attract students at our high school. We're trying to figure out how to give our students the vocational experience. We only have so many students who are accepted at the full vocational school, but we did have vocational coursework here in our school. And when Mayor Betancourt and I were fighting about going into the regional vocational school, I obtained numbers at that time. We had over 500 students involved in vocational and the vocational feeder courses. I was questioned this year by a reporter about serving as the school committee representative for Peabody on that vocational school. And she asked what were the numbers in Peabody. And I got those numbers. We continue to have over 500 students in our current population enrolled in our CTE and vocational classes at Peabody Veterans Memorial High School. Plus we have the 289 that attend the regional vocational school. So you have close to 800 students who are trying to take vocational programs. And that's why I'm fighting this cut so hard.
Have the Perkins amount.
We have the Perkins and all. Do you want us to give them?
Yeah, please, good.
Mrs. Dunn, the Perkins grant for fiscal 19 was $38,845, and that goes down every year. So it's not what it was 5 or 10 years ago.
And how many teachers is that paying for?
If it's going directly to a teacher, a portion of one. It doesn't even meet the one. I don't think Mrs. Ferry's allocating the grant that way. It's funding part of the program.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Do we have a motion on the floor?
We do?
No.
No.
We have- okay.
That's what you do.
We voted.
We already voted.
Too many votes.
Yeah.
Mr. Augman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could we please take a look at accountable unit 19?
19.
I believe it's the line for equipment repair.
19007.
Thank you. And if we go down, I'm on the backup data. So at the top of the page says maintenance and equipment repair is the account name. And if we go down, there are 4 HVAC lines. And one of them just looks grossly disproportionate to the other 3. So we have one line at the Brown School for 7,000 and change, the Learning Academy for 6,500, the high school for 6,300 almost, and then the Carroll is 36,000. Can we perhaps,
Double check that.
thank you.
Talk to Mr. Heafy in the morning.
And while we're in that,
Sorry, 19007.
Oh.
The HVAC. Yep.
and am I waiting or are we gonna,
I'm ready.
what's that?
I'm ready.
Oh, and then in that same page, 2 lines below the last HVAC is IPM for $15,120.
We need that. That's a pest management?
Integrated Pest Management?
Yep.
Okay. Going to the following page, there's another maintenance contracted services for asbestos. Is this an annual expense for testing or remediation, or what's?
It's an annual amount they budget in case they have to, even the small repairs sometimes require remediation.
Do we know when the last time we had an expense associated with this activity?
I don't think we have yet this fiscal year, but we have most years, but we can find out.
So, okay. Going down to the same page, under supplies for grounds.
I'm sorry, 190. Sorry, Mr. Hockman.
No, that's okay. You ready?
Yep.
So going down on the same page, the bottom section, under maintenance for supplies for grounds, we seem to be buying an awful lot of ice melt. We have a line item of $10,000 for ice melt. Shovels and spreaders as well. Is that something where we can take a 50% reduction?
We'll have to check with the maintenance staff on that. I mean, we do use a lot of it.
Do we purchase it independent of the city? Because the city, DPW has a large supply, and perhaps if we could purchase with the city, there might be some cost saving.
I'll talk to Mr. Hafey in the morning. So that's fine, the law.
Could I jump in, Mr. Hockman,
Yeah.
if I could, just to,
Yeah,
on this topic?
sure.
Thank you. So I know last year's budget, we, at the very end, made some cuts to overall maintenance. This year's budget covers that, or goes back to the previous year, correct?
Correct.
How much was that total?
The entire maintenance budget?
No, to go, what was added this year to bring it back to what it was? Do you know the number?
You talking about ordinaries, Mayor?
Yeah, the total
Non-salary.
maintenance budget, I guess, where it was before, because I know we made some cuts at the end.
The total maintenance for fiscal 19 budget was 1.113 million, and the fiscal 20 is 1.432232.
All right, so it's about 300,000?
318.
318,727. Of which 83,000 is salary.
Yep.
And
Yeah, please.
so while we're talking about the salary, some of that's, I believe, contractual, and deservedly so. And some of that, is there a new position that we have in this?
If we could hold that till tomorrow, let me look at that. I wonder, I'm trying to figure out why that is. So let me hold that till tomorrow, if you wouldn't mind.
No, I'm kind of at the last straws, but while we're at these last straws, can we, the supplies for the various trades, is, maybe the administration, while we're talking to Mr. Heafy, can explore whether or not there are some calculated risks we can take with supplies? For supplies for maintenance, not for schools, not for staff, but for the trades, the various trades.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mr. Miko?
Through the chair to Mr. Hockman, what kind of percentage are you asking? Maybe 5, 10%? What's off the total? What are you looking at?
I was probably looking at something a little more aggressive than that, but, I'll, whatever we are able to take comfortably is what as a group, if anything.
Through the chair, can I ask Ms. LaFleur, what would a 10% savings reduction be on that overall budget?
On ordinaries?
Mm-hmm.
143,000.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear Mr.
143,000 for
Would be-
10% reduction.
We can either wait for Mr. Heafy or I can make a motion. There's some risk we're going to need to take at some point. This one seems to be one I'm comfortable with.
Mr. Miko, on that topic?
I would support that.
I'd make a motion for tonight, to entertain a 10% reduction in which lines, Mr. LaFleur?
The maintenance ordinary accounts?
The maintenance ordinary accounts. So moved.
Second.
And then on the motion, if I may.
Motion was made by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mr. Arnottis. On the motion, Mr. Hockman, then we'll go around.
Yeah, I'm prepared to take this motion tonight. I still would like Mr. Heafy's input on this, and I may be prepared to follow this motion up with a more aggressive motion tomorrow night, or whenever we meet again.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that all of the principals had come before us requesting that their supplies be reinstated in line. So I know that there were cuts in the past year that actually I don't think they show up in the budget. Maintenance supplies were cut as well, as far as I know. All supplies were cut. I don't know to what extent. However, I do know that in maintenance, if you cut supplies, that is maintenance deferred. And these increases, some of them are bigger than others, but I believe that that is probably to try to restore the necessary equipment, not equipment, but the necessary supplies they need to do the ordinary maintenance in the district. So I won't be in favor of it, even though I know we do need to reduce the budget, but I don't know what that impact would be, because I don't know what they had to put off from this past year, and then we'll be putting off for this year. So, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 No.
I've gone through as much as I can tonight. Are we able to take unless Mr. Olympio?
Yeah, if there's any other, I mean, I think we've
Mr. Olympio's
run
got-
through quite a bit. Let's maybe take a couple more topics.
Yeah,
Mr.
just-
Olympio?
Yeah, just real quick, revisit under Unit 17. I noticed there was, under salaries, clerical clerk typist, there's a vacancy. Is that,
That was the one Mr. Hoffman just brought up a few minutes ago. Currently, it's filled by a long-term sub, 19.5 hours.
Okay.
That's a very, very
That's-
busy office, so that's not something that I am willing to.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
oh, that's was what Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Okay. And then also too, just racking my brain here, is there any potential savings in summer school programs by, I don't know, could we cut a day? Could we, I mean, is there anything that,
let me check with Mrs. Gruby, because I want to make sure we're in compliance.
yeah.
I
I
will
mean,
check on that
obviously
tomorrow
assuming
morning.
we stay in compliance, but I'm just, yeah, just
Even a
think,
day, if we did 4 days and not.
yeah.
Let me find out for you.
Mrs. Dunn?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. One of the things that I brought up earlier was about reviewing our school lunch prices, because that's a point of revenue to cover the costs in our program. I think we're looking at cuts. We have brought forward some revenue items. I'd like to look at the school lunch prices. I would also like to look at our rental fees for use of the buildings. And I wonder if you could, bring that forward for us, because I think we need to see what those may bring into the system as well. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Miko?
Thank you. Through the chair to Ms. Mertag. Could you also look into administration to see if there would be possibility of any cuts in administration in the buildings? Thank you.
Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, and if you can please just report back tomorrow with some scheduling for conversations with those bargaining units relative to the furlough.
Yes.
Okay, any other remaining items, Mrs. Dunn?
Yes, we were going to build our calendar backwards from the date that we would be presenting to the city council to the date that we need our public hearing. Did any of those dates come through yet?
Tomorrow.
Oh, you'll find out tomorrow?
No, tomorrow is the date. For us to meet our timelines, tomorrow would be the day.
That's
The
the
date.
10-day.
The date of posted public hearing?
For us to meet the council dates of June 11th and 13th, which they have proposed, we have to, and then we have our 10-day public hearing, we would have to conclude tomorrow.
We have to have the school committee has to have a public hearing before we go to the council, or, I'm sorry.
We have to have a public hearing as a committee before it's presented to the council.
Right.
They're submitted to the council.
Oh, okay. Yes, I understand that. And in the past, we've set the date, but we've continued to meet and work right up to the actual public hearing, or 48 hours before, so we can present our proposed budget. So tomorrow would be the deadline on that, or tomorrow's the date we have to vote on our public hearing date?
Tomorrow, my understanding would be that tomorrow we would have to have our budget set. Then we have a 10-day period in which to schedule the public hearing. Then we present to the city council, but they're required to have the budgets, I'm not sure if it's 10 or 14 days before they vote. So to meet that, that's why when we had set the schedule a few weeks back, tomorrow was the last day.
Check on it. Sorry, check on it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that that's the schedule that we established, but I think it artificially or built in some time. I think we did set a completion date by tomorrow, I think, as a group, but I believe that we, in fact, have a little more time to comply with the various deadlines that, to get to the...
We can check on that.
Yeah.
I know the council has put aside the dates of June 11th and June 13th for review, and we need to make sure we get it to the council so they have their opportunity to review as well. That's why it's running up, it's getting pretty tight, but we can double check that, see if there's a little bit of wiggle room.
Thank you.
What's tomorrow?
All right.
What time tomorrow?
George Peabody.
Right, with George Peabody.
5:30 at the main library.
You mean 6:30 here?
Was it 6:30 or 6:15?
6:15?
Yeah.
Okay, so 6:15 here at the Higgins Library.
Motion to recess.
Adjourn until tomorrow. All right, thank you.